Why, hello there. To receive each episode of Sacred Symbols 3 days earlier than the public, totally ad-free. To have your questions, comments, and concerns read on the air. To hear your name in the end credits, and to score other cool perks. Please consider supporting this show on Patreon at patreon.com/ColinsLastStand. Not only will your subscription net you benefits for Sacred Symbols and allow this show to continue into the future, but those benefits also carry over to other CLS shows too, including the video game-centric YouTube show SideQuest, the retro and nostalgia-themed podcast Knockback, and the eclectic interview series Fireside Chats. In other words, you're getting insane bang for your buck. Again, that's patreon.com/ColinsLastStand. Thank you for your kindness, generosity, and support. Without you, Sacred Symbols and CLS couldn't and wouldn't exist. Now, on to the show. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to the Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. This is, if memory serves me right, episode 14. My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm joined, as always, by my friend Chris Raygun. Chris, how are you today?
I'm well. We still have roaches.
Oh, I was going to ask you about that. I mean, that's on the list here.
Yeah, it's great. Love it.
So, give me an update.
So they fumigated, and I don't know if it's customary to fumigate and not clean up the dead roaches. I don't know if that's a thing that people do. I came home to just a sea of corpses. And it was awesome because I got to vacuum them and feel great.
That does sound like it would be satisfying.
It's not.
No?
It's not. It's entirely sarcastic. It was awful.
I feel like that would be very satisfying.
It didn't smell particularly great. You know? So, we killed all of them in the kitchen at least. And then, a few days go by and then they're coming back. So I don't know what the hell to do.
Really?
I'm not surprised, though, I guess, because these things survive, nuclear bombs. Mm-hmm. So at some point, you got to...
Oh, yeah.
At some point, you got to kind of give up. But, yeah, I don't know. That's a bit of a problem.
It sounds like a problem. So your landlord's on the case?
I don't even know if I should even bother at this point because I think they're just coming in from outside. I think that's what's happening.
I would be all over it if I were you.
I just got to learn to live among them.
Oh, okay.
At this point.
We have since we were in caves, so I don't see what the big deal is.
Yeah, exactly.
Here or there. Chris, I want to start. I have some notes here. We have to talk about a few things. I'm going to go a little bit out of order. I think one of the things that I wanted to touch on before we get any further was a conversation we kind of flippantly had last week because I didn't think it was really of any consequence, which was how long should Sacred Symbols go? And I'm not talking about its run. Hopefully it will go for years, but I'm talking about how long each episode will run. Mm-hmm. And I was saying that the 2-hour mark is kind of max for me because I feel like we're losing people at that point. And we got quite a bit of feedback I got on Twitter, on YouTube, on Patreon, where people want us to go as long as literally want us to go as long as possible because they live bored. Lives when they're at work or they're driving around or whatever. I totally respect that. I listen to really long podcasts too. I listen to Sam Harris's deep cuts and Joe Rogan. I get it. But I do feel like we should max out around 2 hours. If we need to go longer than that, I think we'll go longer than that. I think we should go at least 90 minutes or so, but I don't think we should be forcing anything either.
Yeah.
But I want people to know that I heard them loud and clear, and I still think that you're getting a robust product each week.
No, I think I agree. I think 2 hours is a pretty good point because I think there's a lot of people who are hardcore into it who will listen to however long you make it. But I think the majority of people for 2 hours I think it's a pretty solid general kind of time.
Sure. I would imagine, let's say when we record around E3 next year, I assume we'll go for a much longer time. Maybe do multiple episodes.
Oh, yeah. Probably a 7-hour minimum.
Well, at least. Yeah, at least. But I just wanted to let everyone know that I acknowledge them. I didn't mean for that to become a point of conversation, but I didn't want to ignore that in our community of tens of thousands of listeners that it became a point of conversation. So we hear you loud and clear. We'll continue to go as long as we need to. I will never encounter a thing where it's 2 hours and I'm like, we got to stop right now. If Chris is saying something very compelling, as he sometimes does, then we'll keep going. But otherwise, expect 90 to 120 minutes. I see the statistics. The people out there that are saying that you listen to 120 minutes and go longer, there are a lot of you out there, but it's not the entire audience. We want to entertain as many people as possible and inform, of course, as well. A couple of other things that I wanted to throw in here, Chris. Clarification on Telltale.
Mm-hmm. Did we get something wrong?
Yes. Well, not wrong, but there's a clarification that's necessary. First of all, we're going to talk about Telltale pretty extensively when we get into the news because there's new news out there about them. But one thing that I did say, and I wanted to clarify, was that someone had sent me data about the diminishing returns that they were getting every game that they released since Walking Dead Season 1 in 2012 all the way through Guardians of the Galaxy and Batman Season 2 this year, I think. And I was like, I think that came from Steam stats. Well, that's not true, actually. The stats came from True Trophies and True Achievements. So they're still pretty good barometers of people's interest. And you guys should really go look at this chart if you can. Obviously, this is an audio podcast. We can't show you, but it is insane. The drop off from, I think, season 1 of Walking Dead to the last thing they released, which I think was Batman season 2, is probably like 25 times.
Ooh. Wow. Jeez. Oh, my God.
Something awful. Now, it's important to note that the numbers in 2012, 2013, 2014, even 2015 are a little skewed higher because people were playing cross-platform at that time. But still, I wanted to clarify that where those came from if you guys want to go look that up.
Right.
There's a story in the Dallas Morning News that I was going to put in the news section, but I'm not going to because it's too long and too extensive. But people should go look this up. Dallas Morning News. Just look up Dallas Morning News and look up Gearbox Software and Randy Pitchford. Of course, Randy Pitchford is the founder and I think CEO and president of Gearbox, the studio behind Borderlands and some other games. This is really fascinating because apparently he hired a guy named John Wright Martin as his personal assistant, and John Wright Martin took Randy Pitchford for more than $3 million. It's a really remarkable and pretty sad story. So I wanted to kind of point that out to you guys.
Jesus.
The other important question, you and I need to have a conversation about this, Chris, and obviously we'll include the audience. We'll solicit their feedback on this.
Sure.
We've been getting some feedback, not much, and none on Patreon. A lot of people like when we do the drop and read the names, but some people don't like when we do that.
Yeah.
They don't like when we go through the names. I don't know if it's an important part of the show or not. I like doing it because I think it's kind of like cathartic and silly. I understand that when it's going on for 28 games, it can get a little long in the tooth. But here's my discomfort, and I want to know what you think of this. My discomfort is if we reduce the list of games into the games that we want to talk about, I don't think that that's fair. At least we expose the name and the details of every game coming to PlayStation 4, PSVR, and Vita. That way people can at least make their own decisions.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
I think I'd feel pretty uncomfortable delegating which ones we choose to read. Because it's also just kind of like, oh, hey, which one has the most amusing title?
Right.
You know, it's not even necessarily which one's particularly more deserving of your time and attention.
That's well said. So I think we're going to keep the status quo, keep the feedback coming. If you're on Patreon, you can just throw it in the thread and we'll read about it and maybe we'll talk about it.
Maybe one day we'll hit a day where there's like 100 games on Steam and we're like, okay, we'll cut this down. That doesn't even seem like something that's unlikely that you'll find the PSN uploading like 1,000 games a day.
But at this rate, it'll happen in like 2 years. I mean, I can't. PS5's launch library will be something like 550 games. I think PS4 launched digital and retail, although all games are digital. But digital only games and retail games, I think something like 24 games. I can't even imagine what the PlayStation 5 library is going to look like, the shit show that's going to be. The final clarification that I wanted to talk about was game pricing. We did get some feedback that we talk about how game pricing needs to go up. I think it does. But our European, Australian, Brazilian, etc. listeners do let us know that dollar for dollar, they're still paying way more actually than we're paying here.
Oh, yeah.
And so we should be more cognizant and mindful of them. Duly noted. Move to America and you won't have to deal with that situation. Edwin S. Castillo wrote into us and said, is soup a cereal?
I actually looked this up. The definition of soup, I looked this up. I had this prepared because this question infuriated me.
I knew it would.
Soup, a liquid dish typically made by boiling meat, fish, or vegetables, etc., in stock or water. Right? In stock or water. It says typically made with boiling meat or fish, so it's typical. It's not necessarily part of the definition, but it needs to be a liquid dish in stock or water. Cereal is not stock or water. So it's not a soup. Cereal is cereal. Enjoy it.
I agree. Because this brings us down the road.
Psychopaths.
I know. This brings us down the road of, well, this is what we were talking about, the sandwiches a week or two ago. You got to draw a line somewhere. Why can't cereal just be cereal? If you're talking about food that is eaten like it's dry and then you put something over it that's wet, I mean, there's got to be other things that are not cereal or soup that we do that to.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I don't know. I guess soup is fluid.
Is pasta soup?
Is pasta?
I mean, is pasta soup? I mean,
I guess it depends on the ratio of sauce.
Minestrone is soup, I think.
Chicago style pizza is almost a soup.
Yeah. What an abomination that is. Can you believe that?
Okay.
When I lived in San Francisco, there was this place called Patchy's, which was pretty good. It was a chain. I think they're in like Colorado and Washington too. Yeah. Just like a chain of Chicago style deep dish pizza. Pretty good stuff, but man, first of all, I would get it delivered sometimes. These pizzas weigh, dude, they're like 10 pounds. And if you eat one, it's like carb overload. It's insane.
Yeah, you're done for the day at that point.
Oh my God. That's not pizza. That's not pizza.
It isn't. It's good. It's delicious. I like it. But it's not pizza. That is an actual straight up pie. Like what you're eating. You're eating pasta pie.
Right, exactly.
Or like just some Italian sauce pie. That's all it is.
It's fine. The one thing that they did that they turned me on to that I've not tried with normal person pizza, as I like to call it, New York style pizza, is they dip their crust in honey at this restaurant, and it's really good. Like when you're done, you get just a little bit of the tomato sauce, so you get that little bit of still remnant of sweetness and savory, and then you dip it in honey. Pretty good.
I am remarkably skeptical of that.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure we'll go to San Francisco together at some point for some reason.
I see. It was like you took offense to that. Oh, I see. I see how it is.
Brian Salandinen wrote in and said, "Would you rather have a hand job from Kratos or a blow job from Clank?"
You're the worst people.
Now, the hand job from Kratos, I would imagine he would apply incredible pressure. I imagine also his hands are quite dry and worn. So you're going to be maybe a bloody mess.
It's going to be probably a sight to behold. But it isn't metal.
That's true.
So I'm leaning on Kratos just on the sheer fact that at least it's skin at the bare minimum.
Right.
Because the bar is not high for these questions, apparently.
No, they're not high at all. I'm also skeptical of Clank involved in this because Clank is about the size of a lamp. And his mouth can't be much bigger. The circumference of his mouth, is what? First of all, I think it's like a rectangle.
Is there a canonical height to Clank?
I would assume so. I have a few Ratchet and Clank action figures. If we could garner the height of Ratchet, then we can do some simple mathematics.
Yes.
And figure out the height of Clank.
Do some Mythbusters type, scenario discussion. This is awful.
It is, isn't it?
I hate this scenario.
I hate that
all
I keep
these
reading
scenarios
them
are just like they plummet me into this nightmarish. Like, you ever have sleep paralysis?
Yeah, I do get.
And there's like that demon in the corner of the room who's like laughing at you. He's got a little white face. Maybe that's just me.
You get sleep paralysis when you sleep on your back? I assume. Right? Because I get it. I really do. I really do get it.
There was one day where I had it consistently, like constantly. I woke up and I had sleep paralysis, and I was like, "Oh my god, I guess I'll just go back to sleep." And then I woke up again and I had it again. I was like, "Oh my god!" And I went back to sleep and it happened again. Three times in a row in a day, and it was horrible.
It's horrifying when you are trying to get out of it and then you kind of get out of it. For people that don't know what sleep paralysis is, you should look it up. It's horrifying.
It's fascinating. There's actually like a really fascinating Netflix documentary called The Nightmare on it. I recommend it. It's pretty cool.
It's basically about how like the part of your brain or a part of your brain that is awake when you're cognizant is awake while you're sleeping, but unable to awaken your body. So your body feels like lead and like something's wrong but can't do anything about it. And typically Renaissance era paintings of it would show like a demon sitting on your chest and shit like that. Weird shit.
It's really trippy. What it is, it's essentially like the reverse of what your brain does when you're sleeping and you're dreaming. Like when you dream, your brain is awake but your body's asleep. But when you're sleep paralyzed, it's like the opposite, where your body's awake or your body's asleep. And your brain is still kind of like, oh, what's going on? It's trippy. It's horrifying the first time it happens.
It is. It's very trippy. I only get it when I sleep on my back, so I have been wary of doing it. It's funny because I'm wearing a shirt today. One of my favorite bands is Dredge, as a lot of people know that have been following me for a long time. Their album El Cielo, The Sky, which came out in 2002, one of my favorite records of all time. It happens to be, I don't like it because of this, but it happens to be a concept album about sleep paralysis. And all the songs are tying into that. So that's fun and uplifting.
Yeah.
Chris, what are you playing?
Nothing. I haven't played a single. I tried to make some more progress on platinuming Spider-Man. Basically,
it's not that hard.
It's not. It's really just like the time. The thing is, I'm trying to get all these crime districts sorted, where like all the random crimes in all these districts. But I find myself just like meandering around and like swinging and like solving crimes in districts that I've already like finished. So I'm just like. And then I just finished a bunch of them that didn't even count towards anything. So I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to put this down.
Yeah, you have to be mindful of that because the crimes will keep respawning in places where you don't need them anymore.
No, exactly. But the only ones I have left are in Harlem. And like Harlem's like in the north and there's not a lot of tall buildings. It's like probably the least fun place to swing around. So I just never want to be there. So I naturally gravitate away. I don't know.
Get a grip on your life.
Yeah.
Did you mess around with Mega Man 11 at all?
A little bit. I'm weirded out by it. There's something about the jumping that I can't quite get down. I don't know if it's just me or if it's like a thing that's actually proper in the game. But the jumping, and I get that it's a different engine and it's 2.5D. There's a bunch of changes, and it's basically an emulation of old style Mega Man. Where I used to be able to hit those like little hat guys, those little guys that hide under the construction hats.
Tools?
And, like, yeah, the little ones. I used to be able to get them like easy in like older Mega Mans, but I for some reason I can't get him here.
Your timing is all a muck.
It's all off. All off. I got to like recalibrate myself.
Understood.
It's strange.
Well, this was a weird week because I tried to find time to play games. I played Mega Man 11. I've had it for a few weeks, so I played it actually not so much even in the last week, but I wasn't able to talk about it last week. So I'll touch on that in a moment. But the game that I've been playing more recently, and actually we're commenting, I have both of my big flat screens in my living room right now because I was watching football and playing Hollow Knight simultaneously during football yesterday, and I'm going to do that again during the Monday night game, although I think I'll probably be editing this podcast during the Monday night game. Good game tonight, Broncos, Chiefs. But for me, I'm really quite enamored with Hollow Knight. Now, this is a game that came out on PC last year in 2017 and came to Switch earlier this year, and people have been really talking it up. I will say that it is not this revolutionary Metroidvania that everyone has made it out to be. I mean, it's ridiculous to call it that, but it straddles this interesting line for me where it's almost too obtuse and too weird for me. It reminds me a little bit in that way. They're not similar games, but Hyper Light Drifter was the same way, where I played it for like 30 minutes and I'm like, I can't play this. This is too weird and too abstract.
What's weird about it?
I don't like when games just, well, sometimes I do. I don't want to say that because I like Fallout and stuff like that, but where games just don't tell you anything. Like, they don't tell you anything at all. And they're just like, just figure it out. And I'm like, I'm a grown man and I have things to do. I don't have time to fucking sit here and figure this out for hours and hours at a time. Right. So Hollow Knight kind of straddles that line for me where it's very minimal in its exposition. Its exposition is very almost poetic, very well written, very interesting. The whole aesthetic is very interesting. But what I do like about it, from a Metroidvania standpoint, is that it doesn't give you a map until you find the cartographer in the area to buy a map from him. And then you still have to go to his wife and buy a compass in order to see where you are on the map. And even after you buy a map, you still need to go to every section of the map in order to fill it in, but it doesn't fill in automatically. You have to go back to a save, you sit on a bench to save, then it fills in the map. So it kind of gives you this real sense of exploration that a lot of Metroidvanias don't have, because as much as I love Symphony of the Night, which comes out in just a few weeks on PS4, thank God, you know, once you go to a place, it just fills in the square, fills in the square, fills in the square. But this is totally different. And I don't know, there's something interesting about the spirit. I'm vibing with this game quite a bit, but it really does straddle that line where it's like almost a little too cute for me. Almost getting a little too cute for me with some of its stuff, you know?
Just a couple gimmicks.
Yeah.
Like, you think are just kind of...
Yeah. Very beautifully designed, though. Very nicely made.
Yeah, I've seen it. It's a beautiful looking game.
So I've just bought it. I mean, I didn't even reach out to the dev, but just when it came to PS4, I was just like, I'm going to go purchase this and give it a go, because there's other games that I want to give a go. There's a bunch of Metroidvanias that I need to play still. I need to play The Messenger. I need to play Time Spinner, although apparently it's totally broken on Vita, and the developer had said something like he will get around to fixing it. It's like, okay, sure you will. And, you know, I want to go back to Guacamelee 2 and platinum that. I haven't played enough Dead Cells. This is quite the renaissance, as we have said before.
Yeah, it's an insane amount of Metroidvanias.
So I recommend it. I think you might like it. It's cute, and it's not very hard, which is neither here nor there for me, but...
It's on Switch?
It's on Switch, yes. It was on PC last year, then came to Switch this year, and now much more recently.
I feel like I'm used to playing Metroidvanias on Switch now for some reason.
Yeah, because you played Dead Cells there and stuff like that.
Dead Cells.
And you played Mega Man on Xbox, so
yeah,
that's perfectly reasonable. That was because Capcom seemed to be maxed out on PS4 codes, and I wanted to get you something. So it's so funny, man, when you get an Xbox One code. First of all, it's like 20 digits, and then there's another 20-digit unlock code.
It was weird. It was definitely odd. I've never seen that before in my life, and I was like, is this broken?
Apparently not.
Yeah, it worked.
But Mega Man 11 is the big game that, you know, people want to hear from me about. And obviously, you're going to be hard-pressed to find a bigger Mega Man fan than me and a more knowledgeable Mega Man fan than me. I'll stake that flag in the ground any day. And I put my Mega Man 11 review up on SideQuest's YouTube channel, youtube.com/Colin/SideQuest, if you want to watch it. My takeaway is that it's good. It's fine. And that double gear system that they put in, this new mechanic where you can slow down time at will, and it's got like a quick cooldown, so you can just constantly use it.
Yeah, you were off about it initially. You don't like it still?
No, I just don't.
I'm not a fan of it either.
I just don't feel like it's Mega Man. I don't feel like it makes any sense. You almost have the most important power immediately. That's not what Mega Man's all about. Mega Man is about starting with nothing and building to something.
Yeah.
That's what Mega Man is. And doing it in whatever order you want to do it. That's the beauty of it. But when you have the most fundamentally important component of the game from the first second you play it, it kind of ruins that experience.
I like what they did with the choosing your powers thing. Like the way you can actually just kind of throw the analog stick. That's cool. That's a cool way of doing that. But the slow down time thing, I feel like it's just too short to be useful, but just long enough to be like, to just kind of trick me into thinking that I should use it. It's a really trippy experience that I can't get a hold of it yet.
It's going to be interesting to see what people think of it, because I usually don't care about other reviews, but with this I did. After I put up the review, I went around and looked around, and people are a little scattered on it. The interesting thing that I noticed is that some of the audience is kind of mad at me for the review, expecting me to not embrace this change that Mega Man 11 brought with it, but I just don't think it's a change for the positive. I don't think you need to reinvent the wheel. There are just certain things that work the way they work, and Mega Man 9 and 10 proved that by saying, like, we don't need anything more than this 8-bit aesthetic, shoot and jump, and that is it.
It's a fundamental change to the core gameplay is the problem. Like, you can innovate with the sandbox and level design and like different mechanics as far as that goes, but once you change the way a character performs, I feel like that kind of almost undermines a good formula. I feel like Doom is also something that proves that.
Check.
I did it specifically. But no, seriously, like Doom kind of proved that you don't need to, you can have a modern shooter that doesn't have sprint in it, that doesn't have aim down sights, and it's going to be great. You don't need this weird nonsense.
You're exactly right, because I do not think you need to reinvent things just to reinvent them. Mega Man 9 and 10 were critically and commercially acclaimed, and they were exactly what we got in the late 80s, and that's what people liked about it. Now, I think that they could have riffed on it a little bit more, made the games longer. I don't think they were perfect by any stretch of the imagination. And there's very cute things in Mega Man 11 that I really like. I think it's very cute. I have no problem with the 2.5D aesthetic, which I thought I would. I don't think it looks bad. I think they did a nice job. It certainly looks cheaper in that aesthetic than the 8-bit pixel art. The music's not very good. I don't vibe with the Robot Masters either, which is weird, and I feel that way about every game that is not 8-bit, which makes me believe that I just cannot vibe with them when they look too real. Like when they're not little sprites and you're kind of using your imagination on the stage select screen about what they really look like. Yeah. That's the Mega Man I really love. And so I think a lot of it does have to do with me, but a lot of people are like, it's nostalgia goggles and stuff, and I'm like, it's not. You can trust me on this. My opinion on it is not guaranteed to be the opinion you'll hold on it, but I'm not speaking from a place of ignorance, for God's sake.
It's okay, Colin. I trust you.
Thank you. But totally competent, a little expensive, $30. So I don't know that I would outright recommend it to people if they're not Mega Man fans. Obviously, if you're a Mega Man fan, you should just buy it and make your own decision. But otherwise, there are certainly better side scrollers and better action games on PS4. No doubt about it. So yeah, there's that. And you can go check out my review if you want. Mega Man 11. Chris, let's get into the news.
Alrighty.
There's quite a bit to get through, but let's start with number one, which is a pretty significant story.
Yeah, my favorite.
Because I really love talking about this subject and was hoping that we could talk about it again this week.
Absolutely.
Number one, our long national nightmare is over. Crossplay between PS4 and other companies' consoles is officially happening, and it's starting with Fortnite, the game that caused the entire crossplay fiasco to begin with. Sony Interactive Entertainment's president John Cadera confirmed the news on the PlayStation blog, stating the following, quote, "Following a comprehensive evaluation process, SIE has identified a path towards supporting cross-platform features for select third-party content. We recognize that PS4 players have been eagerly awaiting an update, and we appreciate the community's continued patience as we have navigated through the issue to find a solution. The first step will be an open beta beginning today for Fortnite that will allow for cross-platform gameplay, progression, and commerce across PlayStation 4, Android, iOS, Nintendo Switch, Xbox One, Microsoft Windows, and Mac operating systems. We see the beta as an opportunity to conduct thorough testing that ensures cross-platform play is best on PlayStation while being mindful about the user experience from both a technical and social perspective," end quote. On the back of this news, other companies have in turn noted that they intend on possibly taking advantage of Sony's new stance. Microsoft released a statement saying they'd love to get the full cross-play Minecraft experience on a PlayStation 4, while Psyonix, creators of Rocket League, noted that cross-platform play has been a core priority for Rocket League and that Sony's new stance is great. And I know that they're ready to flip the switch on that at a moment's notice.
Yeah. I'm happy about this.
Yeah, are you pleased?
Yeah, I am pleased. It's good. You can't fight the future. It's coming, whether you want it or not, whether you want to or not. It's nice to see them kind of roll back on a decision, because I feel like they've been kind of stubborn lately.
Right.
Especially in the face of this, which is like, I look at this and I think this is just obviously what's going to be commonplace in the future. So I feel like it's just weird to resist it, and I don't know, I'm happy.
I'm happy.
Even if it is Fortnite, and I hate Fortnite.
Yeah, I know how much you hate Fortnite, and I can't unsee the video that people sent us a few weeks ago of the kids in the classroom doing the Fortnite dance or something.
Oh,
I can't. It like actually haunts me, and I'll tell you right now.
That's your sleep paralysis hallucination. You can't move and you see a bunch of kids in the corner dancing Fortnite dances.
It made me want to punt all of them to the moon, to be perfectly honest with you. Just every one of them, escape velocity and all. But Fortnite's a game I guarantee you I'm never going to play Fortnite. I will never, just on principle alone, will never play Fortnite. Even though it's also not a game.
That's fair. Well, you're also just not a multiplayer guy in general.
No.
So that has zero. I've played it. It's fine. It's a solid game. I'm just lukewarm on it entirely.
My whole thing is I have taste. So there's a thing where I have to kind of cater to that. Other people don't, and that's totally okay. Teddy Tags wrote into us and said, "A good day to both of you, gentlemen. Now that Sony has identified a path towards supporting cross-platform features, do you think that only the behemoth-level games will get this treatment? I do not believe that this was a technical issue, as it was turned on by accident before in September 2017, as is famously talked about online. I threw that in there. The cynic in me has decided that as long as Sony thinks they can get away with not enabling crossplay without too much fan backlash or a loss of money, they will not enable it. Thanks for the great content. This kind of flies in the face, Chris, of what you were saying, because I disagree with this. I think that you can't undo this now.
I would assume that once they've made this kind of jump, that they're kind of locked into cater to this specific feature going forward. I don't think it's going to be limited to behemoth games. I mean, is Rocket League, would you consider Rocket League to be a behemoth, like AAA game?
No, it has 50 million players, but
it's a popular game.
Yeah, but it's not. I
don't get the sense that that's what you mean by behemoth titles.
I think he thinks Call of Duty.
And
maybe.
I hope. Hey, Bungie, it'd be nice. Just saying.
It would be nice. Wouldn't it be nice?
Wouldn't it be nice to play Destiny and not have to play through 40 hours of the same campaign several times over? That'd be nice.
That would be nice. I want to see who turns this on next. We have a little bit of news about this a little later on, but it's cool that Sony bent, and I agree with you, Chris. It is nice that Sony took a knee on this one and said, like, fine, we'll concede to the audience that seems to be in the right on this. And as Teddy Tags said when he wrote into us, crossplay functionality apparently was turned on accidentally for a little while in September. So,
well, we know it's possible just from Rocket League. Like, it's not It's not this impossibility. We can't figure it out. Yes, you can. You've done it.
You
what
fucking
do you mean?
Liars. You goddamn liars.
It's such a weird thing. You would have been better off just saying, we don't want to. I feel like that would have been a lot more respectable. Just like, it's complicated. There's a lot of switches that need to be flipped.
Yeah.
Like, what do you...
Well, these are the guys that can't figure out how to let you change your PlayStation Network name.
That is fair.
12 years running now. Working hard over there. Number 2, October's free PlayStation Plus games have been revealed. If you have an active PS Plus subscription, you can download the following games for free for the duration of October. Remember, you can and should go into the PS Store and add each game to your download list, even if you don't intend on playing them now, as doing so will give you free access in the future, so long as your subscription is active. PlayStation 4 gamers can download multiplayer survival game Friday the 13th, The Game, and multiplayer-centric Laser League. On PS3, you can grab adventure game Master Reboot and puzzle game The Bridge, which can also be played on PS4 and Vita. And finally, on Vita, you can download side-scrolling action game Rocket Birds 2 Evolution, which also works on PS4, and adventure game 2064 Read-Only Memories, which can also be downloaded on PS4. Rocket Birds, I played the original one. It was cool. I didn't play the sequel. I never played some of these other games. Friday the 13th being back is interesting because that game, I think, was pulled down from the store for a little while over some sort of IP dispute.
Really?
Yeah.
They didn't have the license for the IP?
No, they did. I'm trying to get the story straight here in my mind. I probably should have looked it up. It was something like maybe the core game was there, but they couldn't support it with DLC or something like that because there was some lawsuit going on with the stakeholders that owned it that kind of was transferring. Like, they did have the right to make the game, but then something happened. So I guess they're back. I don't know.
That's cool. I heard good things about that game.
I did too, actually.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be pretty cool. And I love that IP a lot. Crystal Lake. Zachary Wellman wrote in and said, this question is for Chris.
Ooh.
How do you decide what multiplayer games to play? Other than an FPS or anything with a grappling hook, how do you decide on what to play? Last year, my buddy Anthony and I really got into Friday the 13th. We played it almost every night. I have never been that infatuated with a multiplayer game in my life. I now find myself struggling to find something to take its place. Fallout 76, maybe? Was just curious on your thoughts on the matter. Thanks, gents. Chris?
I mean, I still play some of the old games that I used to like. I still play the older Halo games online. I'm actually kind of excited to check out the new Call of Duty for the first time, and I haven't played a Call of Duty game that I liked since Modern Warfare 2, so it's been quite a while. But it's usually based on if my friends are on it. That's the reason I got back into Destiny, honestly, is because hey, all my friends had it, and they're like, hey, you should get on. And I'm like, okay, I'll do this again, and it's enjoyable. It's like everything's more fun, I think, especially a game. Multiplayer games are way more fun when you're playing with your friends. I think that's obviously true.
Unless you're me. Extracting 40 or 50 hours out of the Division completely alone.
That's fair. You're the outlier, I think.
Yeah, no doubt.
I think it's mainly just friends. I do miss the Left 4 Dead days. I felt like there used to be a lot of multiplayer experiences for you to choose from, and now I feel like it's a bit more. There's still a lot, but it feels more limited for some reason because I feel like they're all just normal shooters. But yeah, it's mostly just a friend thing or population.
It's funny he brought this up because I felt this way about The Last of Us online, where I was never enamored with a game online like I was with that game for some reason. Mm-hmm. And it is one of those experiences where when I have jumped in and tried other things and they're fine or they're good, it's just maybe scratch that itch if I jumped online with Titanfall 2 or I jumped online with Battlefield 1, and I'm like, this is fine, but it's just never going to be that for me. Even though they're not commensurate games, I get what he's saying, where it's hard to find that experience again.
You're more of like a person, you play games to just kind of get lost and relax, right?
Right. I don't want to be around other people, playing games.
Yeah.
It's just not
I
fun
play
for
it for like almost like competition. I think that's also why I like Mega Man and stuff like that, because it's like that vitriol towards like another person, but like the other person is just like the game itself. You know what I mean? That's why I like challenging like old school kind of platformers and stuff like that.
Well, that's why I love the terminology beating a game.
Yeah.
You don't beat a movie or beat a book. You read a book, you finish a book, you finish a movie. You beat the game, and I love that.
You finish some games now.
That's true. That's true. But I love that terminology. I mean, that 30 or 40-year-old terminology. It tells you everything you need to know about how we look at the games we play, even if we're playing them
it's competition.
by ourselves. Yeah, absolutely.
That's what game basically means, really.
Yeah. It's fun to have an ecosystem of gamers, millions of gamers that all are looking for something different in it. And that's why I like having you on this show and why I've talked about this in the past with others, because you're so different than me in that regard that I think it allows us to talk more authoritatively to a greater group of people. Like, I can't talk about those games. I'm not even interested in talking about those games. Mm-hmm. So it allows us to fill in a little bit more of like the graph to speak to our, our audience in an effective way, which I think is awesome.
It's good.
Number 3. A class action lawsuit has been filed against Telltale Games led by ex-employee Vernie Roberts.
Oh, no.
Roberts' action claims that Telltale didn't follow the federal law known as the WARN Act, or the Worker Adjustment and Retraining Notification Act. This act essentially requires companies that are in financial limbo or are otherwise anticipating significant reductions or even an outright closure to warn its employees 2 months in advance, depending on the size of the company's roster of employees. According to Polygon, a win in the lawsuit would require Telltale to pay its approximately 275 employees salary and benefits for 60 days. Now, there's a catch here, according to Games Daily, which notes that if a company is seeking funding or other financial remedies when it shuts down, it could be immune to federal charges, though the California state iteration of the WARN Act is far less flexible. This is relevant because Variety has reported that Telltale was actively seeking investment to keep the company going, with AMC being one of the possible investors, just as Lionsgate became a major funder of Telltale Games back in 2015. And obviously they all lost their shirts, I guess, on this. So,
oh boy,
my major thing before we get into the questions we got for this, Chris, is you're suing an entity that doesn't have any money and doesn't own anything. So I don't really know that even if they won, Telltale's just gonna be like, we're broke, we have no money, and I don't know how you get around that. That
yeah,
seems weird
it feels like you wouldn't really get much of anything, and lawsuits are expensive in and of themselves. So I feel like you'd almost be doing yourself a disservice.
Exactly. My assumption is that this guy, this ex-Telltale employee, is doing, found a law firm that's going to do it pro bono for back-end gains, and they must see something in their books or something that leads them to believe that they have funds. Maybe even if it's just like your games are going to continue to be sold for many years to come, and whenever a game is sold, it goes into a kitty that is sent to these people until they're paid back. That's possible.
Yeah. Let me just be clear. It's totally justified, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just question like what the end result is actually going to be.
Steve Hamilton wrote in and said, "Hey guys, with the latest mass layoff at Telltale in mind, what changes do you think, if any, can the developer market implement to better protect employees from situations like this? And in other situations where developers know they are essentially working themselves out of a job as soon as the game launches, what can they do to protect against that post-launch layoff?" What do you think of this? Because for me, this is unfortunately part and parcel of the creative industry, where you're making a product for many years at a time, whether it's a film or a game or whatever, and your ability to do that again really wholly hinges on that particular product. And you're not owed, unfortunately, you're just not owed a job. You're not owed anything, So that's kind of the unfortunate, harsh reality of the situation for me.
There's going to be certain situations where I feel like you could probably see the writing on the wall, where, you can probably tell, hey, this isn't doing the best, or hey, we're probably on a downward trajectory here. But even in those cases, you never know if something's going to bounce back. Like certain studios bounce way the hell back, and certain ones, falter, and some just like erupt immediately. I feel like it's just not really all that predictable enough to offer a lot of assistance. It just feels like a bit of a clusterfuck.
The big, I guess, solution that's often floated, knowing, of course, that the games industry and games media is left to far left predominantly, is the idea of unionizing. And I fundamentally don't have a problem with private sector unions at all. I have my problem, and not to get too political, my problem though is with public sector unions. I have a huge problem with them because that's being a union on the back of the taxpayer. And unless you're like in a position where you're like literally going to lose your life, I don't think you should be like an IRS employee with a union. I think that's fucking absurd. But in private industry, I have no problem with unions existing because that's the market's going to adjust one way or the other to that. Like my uncle's now a retired draftsman. He was in a draftsman union that was totally private in New York, and they would get hired to do, build buildings and stuff. And that's private money. So I have no problem with that. So fundamentally, them unionizing is fine with me if that's what they want to do. But I just think that that's literally an impossible ask because of the way games are developed. They're developed across country lines, across continental lines, with different pay structures. The average Polish game developer in real U.S. money makes almost, a little more, I think, than half of what someone in California working at Naughty Dog or Sony Santa Monica makes. So how do you unionize and protect everyone's rights when a portion of Call of Duty might be made in Europe, or DICE is farming things over to California and everyone's paid different amounts of money? And it's like, it's impossible. It's just totally impossible.
It just feels like a huge bureaucratic mess.
Now you can unionize on a, developer by developer, or even maybe state by state or country by country basis, but that would be much more manageable. But I just don't see that happening. I don't think the economics of video game development works out that way. But contrary to that, the economics of movies doesn't seem like it would work for that, and it does. Movies are completely unionized, as is TV, completely unionized. So
yeah, maybe there should be a test bed.
We'll see. I think it's going to require, Dead Cells, Motion Twin, a great example of a French studio that is basically socialistically run with no ownership or fee structure. Everyone gets paid the same amount and owns the same amount in the studio. That worked for them. They made a great game. I don't know that you can scale that to a 200-person studio.
Yeah.
I don't know that they could even scale that much bigger than what they are now. I mean, how do you attract talent when you're like, no matter what you do on this game, no matter what, you're going to get 1/10 of the amount of money. You might have put in 1/8 the amount of effort, and your ideas might be a half of the game, but you'll get 1/10 of the money. And that's when it all breaks down. Of course, Shouldn't a creative director make more than an associate producer? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, 100%.
James Gallus wrote into us, Chris, and said, "Good day, gentlemen. With Telltale going belly up before they could complete or maybe even start Stranger Things, do you think Netflix makes a move to games by picking up some staff from them? Netflix is located in the area. Telltale staff is familiar with their IP already, and it would be a good business move to expand from just TV and movies. As they develop a show that the game could be co-developed to be released in between seasons to keep people invested in the shows and give more depth to the story." I absolutely love this idea.
I'm fascinated at this. I'm fascinated at the fact that I hadn't thought of this before, because it seems actually like really smart of them to do.
It's a great
idea. They own
idea.
So many unique IPs that entirely belong to them. They could actually probably clean house.
It would be really great. As long as they can fix the technology, grab the who's who from Telltale, create a smaller and more nimble studio, and use their backing. I mean, Netflix, I think last year, I think I might be a little off, but I think they spent something like $12 billion on original programming.
It's insane.
And you only need, to make a Telltale-style episodic 5-episode game, you would reasonably only need, if you kept the staff small, if you had the tools and the middleware in place, less than $10 million. So it's a drop in the bucket to make these things happen. And I know that this is a shitty IP to bring up now, but what they could have done with something like House of Cards before it imploded or something like that would be so cool. Or what they could do with Ozark, or what they can do with, you're right. Like they have all of these things. I think
super
this is
smart, and it's
fantastic idea. Fantastic.
No, it's a really good idea, and it's Netflix too. So they got the shovelware that a lot of games systems have. So they're already kind of halfway there.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a bunch of nonsense on Netflix that nobody cares about.
So much. I started watching that weird show with Erin. What the fuck is it even called? It's about like the mental patients. What is it called?
The mental patients?
Yeah, it's about like people that are like, they enter, it looks like some sort of futuristic society. They're like, they have psychiatric problems and they enter this program of some sort. It's really abstract. The dude from that lost all the weight, that actor that lost all the weight. I can't.
Actor that lost all the weight. Colin,
I'm not doing very well over here.
That's so many. Christian Bale?
No,
that's the first person that comes to mind because of The Machinist.
I can't remember it at all. I can't remember anything I'm talking about.
Point being, that's a great idea. I love that idea. If Netflix is going to break into games, their first attempt would have to be a really solid one. Because I feel like there would be a lot of doubt placed on Netflix, just because you look at Netflix and you think, how is this? It's almost kind of like the same feeling that I feel like a lot of people would get from Amazon making games, where it's like, what is this? Like I go here for movies, I go to Amazon for USB cables. You know what are they doing making a game? You know, they would have a lot of doubt to disperse.
So the show, I just looked it up. I cut out the whole thing. It's called Maniac, and the actor is Jonah Hill.
Okay,
I gotta really stop smoking weed.
Jonah Hill.
Holy moly! But yeah, it's an interesting show. It's got like this almost, I don't know, futuristic, almost cyberpunk thing.
Is it serious? Is it like a drama?
It seems like it's serious. Like it seems like maybe a dark comedy in a way. I only watched 1.5 episodes, and I'm like, it's too weird for me. But anyway, I wanted to let you all know that I'm not crazy. By the way, another one that would work great for it is Black Mirror.
Yeah.
Which is one of my favorites.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And they announced Black Mirror's 5th season today as we're recording this, which is awesome. And one of the episodes is a choose your own adventure episode. And so they're already working in some sort of interface into Netflix that will allow us to control it in that way. So imagine having a Telltale game series or Telltale style game series that's just on Netflix where you don't need a console and you just use your remote control to control it. It looks like they're already kind of doing that with Black Mirror, which I absolutely love.
That sounds like a really good idea. That's something that a lot of YouTubers used to do back when annotations was a thing. They would have like, hey, what do you do? Those are always so cool.
Lockmort wrote into us again this week. Remember, Lockmort wrote in with a difficult question for us to answer about this last week when he asked us if Telltale's demise must some way, or at least in his perspective, must some way be involved with the lack of talent or effort from the people that actually work there, which is something we discussed, and I appreciated him asking such a candid question. And he wrote in this week, Chris, and he said, "Hi guys, in the age of social media, mob justice, and limitless connectivity, how do you feel the relationship between developers and their audiences have evolved? With the recent closure of Telltale, a lot of industry people came forward, once again stating that gamers are horrible people, this time for being glad that Telltale is seemingly willing to finish The Walking Dead, a product many of them already paid for. Personally speaking, as a consumer, I'm so done with being scolded by personalities and companies who are trying to sell me their products, or in this case, the exact opposite, but only if I adhere to their rules, way of thinking, or political mindset, which more often than not has absolutely nothing to do with the actual product they're selling. What do you guys think about all of this? To be fair, it also goes the other way around. When CD Projekt Red recently made an innocent, albeit possibly lame joke on their Twitter account, they were forced to delete and apologize for it by the usual Twitter outrage mob. Thank you for all of your hard work and for being the best at what you do." Thank you for your question, Lockmort.
Yeah.
What do you make of this adversarial relationship? We're going to get into the finishing of The Walking Dead in a minute, but I think you and I would both agree that there is this brooding adversarial and toxic relationship between the readership of video game websites in particular, not YouTube channels, not podcasts, video game websites, and the audience of those websites. And I don't understand why no one tamps it down and tries to put the fire out before it engulfs it, because video game websites are becoming less and less useful as time goes on. And I do not understand where this relationship comes from. And I do think that a lot of it does come from the staffs of the websites themselves.
Yeah, well, I think you just said it, basically. They're becoming a lot less in the limelight than they used to be. I feel like now a lot of YouTube channels kind of facilitate that need to know, hey, what's a game looking like? How does this person feel about a game? Especially when it's a person that people are fans of, because they've built this connection with this specific person, and they know what this specific person's tastes are, and they know how to gauge that person's taste. Oh, I like this guy. We agree a lot on games. I'll trust this guy. Whereas, with any given website, it's kind of just like a big conglomerate of people. You don't really know whose perspective you're getting unless you're really paying attention to the red text that links to the, I think a lot of the vitriol is kind of almost by design, in the sense that they need to attract people. And the way you attract people nowadays is inflammatory statements, inflammatory headlines made to catch you off guard. A lot of times you read the headlines and it has nothing to do with what's in the article at all. Like, they'll just make shit up. It's frustrating. But I think that's just inherently like how they're getting readership in the first place. I don't know if you can even combat it.
You're right in the fact that the economy that they live in now requires clicks, as it always has. And if you get hate clicks, I guess it matters just as much. It's like what Howard Stern used to say about how people that hate Howard Stern listen to him longer. They're actually way more valuable to him than the people that like him.
Yeah.
And that might be the case in what we're running into today. Because, it's funny too, because Ben Kuchera, who I don't have a lot of love for at all, who's a Polygon writer, wrote this piece, just to be fair to the other side, wrote this piece about Telltale and what happened and how their games failed to evolve. And the Twitter outrage mob on the other side was going crazy about, how can you talk about these people like this, and you're a fucking idiot, and and I read it and I'm like, this is a totally fine article. Yeah. Like, this is totally fine. So you never really know what you're going to get, and you kind of make assumptions, and I think it's on all of us to break those assumptions. But I also think that it's incumbent on us to develop meaningful and respectful relationships with the people that support us. And that's what I try to do here. I might have strong opinions, and I might like to shit on things every once in a while, and we're negative and we're positive, and we kind of vacillate between those things, but everyone's welcome. And I never want to have a relationship like that. And when I was at IGN, we didn't have a relationship like that with the audience. So this is a new thing. This is a new thing. I came from that world, and it wasn't like this at all.
Yeah.
And I do think you're right. It's a fear of death You know, it really is.
No. It's how you get the eyes. And by the way, this is not just a problem with, video game news sites or anything. This is a problem, I think, honestly, internet wide, of just kind of clickbait in general. Like, hey, I'm going to say something outrageous, and hopefully that'll get eyes on me. It's everywhere right now, and I think it's part of why there's so much vitriol.
It's very much embedded into politics, which is why I just completely withdraw from even paying attention to it anymore. Like with the Kavanaugh hearings that happened last Thursday, that was the first time I tuned into the story at all. I was like, all right, I'm going to listen to what they have to say now that we have primary sources, because I'm sick of hearing for weeks everyone just spinning and it's good or it's bad and people getting the same piece of information and then making it to be the best thing in the world or the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
I'm over it. I'm just over it. And I don't feel like it serves anyone.
It's so obviously team-oriented, too.
Right.
It's like, hey, is my team winning? Hey, we're winning. And it's, what are you doing?
It's just tribal, and I'm not down with it. So, yeah, I think that that's something to be noted, Lockmort. And, obviously we want to have a respectful conversation with our audience every week. And I just do think that this is why podcasts, Twitch, and YouTube are just destroying old games media, because they are. I mean, it just is happening. And the fact of the matter is, when you look at the stabs of a lot of these websites now that have these adversarial relationships, everything rides on them keeping that job, because there is no way that they would be able to jump to Patreon or YouTube or podcast on their own solo and, find any success at all. So it's easy for them to take shots at people like us, but we're doing it without a big corporate overlord that they would be finished if they didn't have over them. And I think that fear combined with that need for clicks, combined with that need for verification and validation, it leads us to this toxic environment.
Yeah.
Number 4, Telltale, or at least the remnants of the closed studio, may be pursuing some sort of resolution to its in limbo final season of The Walking Dead, the game, which was victimized by the closure of the studio. Telltale said the following in a tweet, quote, "Hi everyone, we have a Walking Dead update for you. Multiple potential partners have stepped forward to express interest in helping to see the final season through to completion. While we can't make any promises today, we are actively working towards a solution that will allow episodes 3 and 4 to be completed and released in some form. In the meantime, episode 2 will release tomorrow across all platforms as planned. We hope to have answers for your other questions soon." End quote. Obviously, the second episode has been released since the statement was written and released, leaving episode 3 and 4 in a continued unknown state. The final season of the game has reportedly been removed from sale while everything is sorted out, according to multiple sources. Before we get into the question that was submitted about this, Chris, how does this strike you? Because they didn't pay their employees severance or anything like that, going back to our earlier point. And I do think that people screaming from the top of their lungs, like, you better pay your fucking people before you have any notion that you're going to finish this. But maybe they come in tandem, actually. Maybe the ability to get that money comes from a small seed investment that allows them to just get this thing out the door, and then they take the proceeds from that and they do what's right by the Warren Act, as we noted earlier.
Well, I mean, we can hope that that's the case. I do think it's odd. Just let it die, especially if you're in this position where you haven't paid the people who've worked on this. Just let it die. I mean, hopefully this is a step in the right direction towards actually getting those people the compensation that they earned. But at this point, like, we're not even sure if this is even happening.
Exactly. And it's unconscionable to me for these employees to be left in the lurch like that with no warning. Now, again, I own a company. Things happen, but you have to imagine that the financial calamity that was going on behind the scenes was so thorough and so rapid that they were not able to anticipate this. They were literally hiring people. I mean, that's the craziest thing. Like, people, according to sources, were hired in like the week or two before this happened. That's insane. That's negligent to the point of, if I were one of those people that quit a job at another studio, moved to San Rafael, and took a job at Telltale, and then a month later I was laid off, I would sue the shit out of them.
Yeah.
Because I gave up.
And you'd be justified.
Yeah, exactly.
It's insane.
Some of these people have families, kids in college, ill children, pregnant wives, whatever the case might be. I mean, it's a serious thing. Christopher Elliott wrote in and said, "Hey, Colin and Chris, sorry to get back into the whole Telltale thing, but after absorbing stories about the situation from many sources, not one person mentioned a factor I immediately thought of, that being PlayStation Plus. I believe I have 5 Telltale games and didn't pay for one. Was PS Plus money propping them up, or did the service quickly teach all of us to never pay for their games?"
It's a valid question, because now that I think about it, I think I played the first season of The Walking Dead because I think it was on Xbox. I think it was on Games with Gold one year. I think it was December that it was on Games with Gold of 2013 or one of those years. And that's the only game I ever had from Telltale. It's the only game I ever finished, and I was like, that was fine. I never once paid for a Telltale game since, or ever.
It could be that.
They compensate, right, for PS Plus.
Yeah, it's so...
I assume they do it based on predictable sales trajectory, probably?
I think so. I think it's based on the name. They're kind of, as far as I understand, Sony's looking to fill in different holes, like an indie hole and a AAA hole or whatever, multiplayer. And in their library that month, they'll kind of divvy out money, like lump sums. And it's funny, I said this before, I think, to you, but I've had developers and publishers tell me all sorts of shit that's interesting. And I've had very few of them ever be willing to tell me what happens with PlayStation Plus games, like how it works, how they approach you, what you're paid, what the rubric looks like. As far as I understand it, is a flat sum of money that you are given to make your game free that month. And I've heard stories about developers having massive regret about doing it. And I've heard developers having, adulation about it because it's the reason that they were able to survive.
It seems like a gamble.
Yeah. Because basically you'll say they'll give you $1 million for The Walking Dead season 1 when season 2's out. The gamble is, in that month, will you have made $1 million net from having sold season 1 in anticipation of season 2? You don't know. So it's a roll of the dice. And I think that's what Sony kind of takes advantage of, for better or for worse. I don't know that it's taking advantage of per se, but
I'm really curious about Destiny 2 being on PS Plus.
That's got to be
something that I'm really curious about. Like what was offered there?
A lot, probably.
Yeah, probably.
And for all I know, and for all we know, that could have been in the language when Sony and Activision signed their exclusive deal with each other for first dibs on DLC and stuff like that. That might have been a thing where that activated for some reason, where it's like now the game is a PlayStation Plus game. For all we know, Sony got it for free. But I doubt it. I would assume Activision was paid a healthy sum for that, especially because it's not very likely to see Activision games on PlayStation Plus rosters. Number 5. There will be no PlayStation experience this year. I wrote this week in our thing, but it's this year. The Sony-owned and PlayStation-centric convention, which started in December of 2014, has run each year since, with iterations in 2014, 2015, 2016, and 2017. Sony's Sean Layden went on the PlayStation blogcast to reveal the bad news, noting that, quote, "For 2018, I know this is going to be a disappointment to some people, but we decided not to hold PlayStation Experience this year," end quote. He said later, quote, "The reasons behind that really are we have a lot of progress that we're making on our games. Now that we have Spider-Man out the door, we're looking down into 2019 games like Dreams and Days Gone, but we wouldn't have enough to bring people all together in some location in North America to have the event. We don't want to set expectations really high and then not deliver on that. It was a hard decision, but we have determined that this year we will not hold PlayStation Experience," end quote. It's disappointing for us because I wanted to see if we can do the show live there.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do it next year.
Would have been cool.
And I will be aiming to do something. Maybe we'll be aiming to do something at PAX East. I'll figure out how to do that, submit it, and maybe they'll let us do it. I don't know. Probably not.
We'll see.
Joe John Quinn wrote into us and said, "Hey, Colin and Chris, with PlayStation Experience officially canceled, can you maybe shed some light into why the event was canceled? This event felt like a huge power play for Sony due to its holiday timing and gratuitous media coverage. I went to PSX last year, and while it was poo-pooed by many, I actually enjoyed the event. It felt like a true community-driven event. I was planning to go again this year, and I'm very sad I will not be able to." My assumption is that they just don't have anything to show. I think that we can read into this, Chris, from their E3 showcase that they're simply in a holding pattern now. I don't think that they have any major AAA exclusive PS4 games to reveal, and they're simply not ready to show PS5 games. I still think PS4 games of a AA second-party provenance will probably be announced and revealed and launched before PS5 comes, but not enough to hold a show like this. And what's going to be the main thing? Like more Days Gone, more Dreams? Like I think we've seen enough already. Like get the games out.
I like that they're doing this instead of just having an obligatory showcase of stuff we've already seen or stuff that we've seen enough of. I don't feel particularly bad about it. It's just like, yeah, good. If you don't have anything to show, don't show.
Exactly.
Is how I feel.
Exactly. Jackson wrote in and said, "Hey, CNC, now that we know that there will be no PSX this year, do you think that's a sign that we've seen all the remaining first-party exclusives for PS4 and that whatever new first-party games they reveal in the next year and beyond will be PS5 games?" As I said, I think so, but I wanted to bring that question up to parse a little bit. I still think you're going to get Sony-published PS4 games that aren't announced yet. I just don't think they're going to be AAA games. I think they're going to be smaller Kill Strain or Drawn to Death style games, which maybe PSX would have been perfect for, but yeah, I think that everything from here on out is going to be PS5 only, and I would imagine that Death Stranding and Ghost of Tsushima will be the last PS4 exclusives of any consequence. I think next year you'll get Days Gone in February. Obviously, you'll get Dreams probably in like March or April. You'll get The Last of Us Part 2 in June. You'll get Ghost of Tsushima in like September, and maybe Death Stranding in 2020. And that's basically it. Not a bad lineup.
No.
But nothing too exciting to show. And this goes back, Chris, to the fact that there are just too many shows.
Yeah, E3 especially. It was just, I feel like E3 is the main one, whereas everybody kind of dumps everything in. Because Gamescom was pretty.
David S. Graham wrote into us, Chris.
Ooh.
He said, "Before I begin, I would like to say that your stance on ice and drinks is roughly 50% of why I'm still listening to whatever it is you guys have to say." Thank you for that, David. Anyway, with PSX being canceled, is it officially time to start legitimately worrying, or sounding the klaxons if you prefer, about Sony truly slipping back into the early PS3 way of thinking? Or is it perhaps much ado about nothing, and this is more of a sign of culling out superfluous press events? Thanks again for the great shows, and stay golden. I think this is the exact opposite. Yeah. I think that this is them saying, like, we literally have nothing to show, and we can't fake our way through a show like this. It's just going to bring us more bad press. We got bad press because of our E3 showcase. How much more can we possibly take? Let's focus on the games.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was literally about to say that exact thing. I think the exact opposite. It's a good sign, honestly, especially with the crossplay thing. There was a lot of reasonable doubt that they might just kind of slip back into that mentality, but I feel like they've been doing a pretty good job at convincing me personally that that might not happen. It's still, anybody's guess, but because we're still at least a year or two away from whatever the next step is, but I think it's a good sign that they're not just showing stuff that's not ready, or stuff that's... How many trailers have we seen of games that just haven't come out? Agent. Or like
Wild.
Yeah,
That's what we talked about a week or two ago.
Yeah, exactly. So it's I'd rather them show us stuff that exists that will come out when it's ready, as opposed to just nebulous stuff that's supposed to get us excited and then ultimately just leaves us disappointed at its lack of existence.
I've been saying this for a while, that they're just, as I said earlier, they're just too many shows and too many showcases, and this shit has to end. It just has to end. There's just too much. There's not enough games. Making video games is hard. No one wants 10 exclusive PS4 games a year. That's like totally unreasonable. It's not possible to release that many games, to fund that many games, to market that many games, and it's certainly not possible to string them along and show them off. So I don't know what they're thinking, but I think they're going in the right direction with this, and PSX will be back, I assume, next year. And by the way, what would be really fucking smart is for them to reveal PS5 at PSX.
Yeah.
If you want to make it a real event, that's what you do. Brian Barlog wrote in and said, hello, Colin and Chris. Thank you for doing such a great show. You're welcome. It got me to finally become a patron for someone, and I'm glad it's CLS. Thank you so much, Brian. And by the way, let me just jump in here real quick. This show is supported on Patreon. Everything I do is supported on Patreon. You're only able to submit questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas to the show if you're a supporter of CLS on Patreon, and you get early ad-free access to every episode of Sacred Symbols, etc. So consider supporting me and Chris at patreon.com/ColinsLastStand. He says, keep up the good work. My question is, with Sony saying there will be no PSX this year, would that seem to signal that they are looking to have some type of unveiling of PS5 in Q1, a la the PS4 reveal? This seems more likely to me, unless they really just don't have anything to say or announce at this point. I don't think so.
Yeah. Because that would be 2019, right?
Right. Q1 2019, yeah.
It's definitely not 2019.
You want to show it the year that it's going to come out, I think. Or if you're going to show it and it's going to come out in Q1, say Q1 2020, you show it in the fall. But there's no reason to interrupt the momentum of PlayStation 4 by showing that console right now. When PS4's trajectory is 100 million plus, no reason to show anything else.
Yeah, that reveal I strongly suspect is Q1 2020. Number
6. This one just broke when you got here. I had to add this one.
Yeah.
Bungie has filed a new trademark with the European Union Intellectual Property Office, according to VG 24/7. The website reports that the trademark filed is for something called Matter and is listed as computer game software, in quotes, and quotes, internet entertainment services. As VG 24/7 points out, this could have something to do with the deal Bungie signed with NetEase, a China-based publisher, earlier this past summer, which will reportedly grant it $100 million in funding. You have to assume this is their next game.
Yeah, that would be my base assumption. It's always tricky going off of trademarks, because I believe they trademarked Comet back in the day. Comet was a part of their original Activision deal. And there's been no Comets.
It probably was Destiny's original name, maybe, or something like that. Maybe.
Yeah, like different. Yeah.
Comet's a pretty cool name. I don't know how I feel about it being better than Destiny, but
yeah, we'll see. I don't know.
We will. I will say that as far as I understand, Activision and Bungie's deal is a 3-game deal. So this indicates that they're gonna scale and make 2 games at once. Or maybe NetEase is now collaborating with Activision on the 3rd game, or whatever the case might be. We don't really know, but they are in hock to Activision for another game.
Maybe, but Bungie also likes to get a pretty quick jump start on a lot of their projects. Like they were working on Destiny back when Halo 3 was coming out. Like in 2007, I think they were already working on some preconceptual ideas for Destiny. It's even in ODST. It's referenced in it. So it's and that's 2008. The game came out in 2014? So that's a long time.
In ODST, Destiny is referenced?
Directly referenced,
That's cool.
Yeah, it was neat. It was weird. And nobody knew what it meant until years later. But
I kind of vaguely remember that. That's kind of cool. It reminds me of the newspaper in Uncharted 3.
Exactly.
That was The Last of Us. And the funny story about that, for people that don't know, is that they forgot to take it out. They thought that The Last of Us was going to be revealed before Uncharted 3 came out, and then they left it in. It's a newspaper in the beginning in a bar. and it talks about like the cordyceps virus or whatever, and no one noticed until after The Last of Us was revealed later in 2012. But that's so funny where they apparently at Naughty Dog freaked out. They're like, oh shit, like we got too cute here and we almost spoiled
It's a cool
the game.
Easter egg. It's cool.
It's cool because no one referenced it. No one knew it. 8-9 million people played Uncharted 3 and no one noticed.
Yeah.
Or made like a stink about it, especially on the internet. I always found that funny. Number 7. Netflix intends on pursuing its Stranger Things game, even though the game was once in development by now shuttered studio Telltale Games. A Netflix spokesperson told Polygon the following, quote, "We are saddened by the news about Telltale Games. They developed many great games in the past and left an indelible mark in the industry. Minecraft Story Mode is still moving forward as planned. We are in the process of evaluating other options for bringing the Stranger Things universe to life in an interactive medium," end quote. It was only a few months ago that Telltale and Netflix revealed that a Stranger Things game was in development, while Minecraft Story Mode was to be offered on Netflix's service itself and should still be rolling out in the future as the small group of people working at Telltale today are toiling away on that finished product.
So wait a second. Minecraft Story Mode, that's a game.
It is. It was already a game, and I think that it was being ported or somehow brought to Netflix's service by Telltale because it was already released. Yeah, I think so. I tried to read more deeply about it, and I just wasn't finding too much about it. But yeah, they were funding that game's porting, I think, to their service, which could be a similar interactive thing to what we were talking about with Black Mirror's Choose Your Own Adventure. And it seems like they're getting into that mode, and I think it's very smart to have video game options. I mean, Telltale games are completely playable with just a couple buttons, and if you have just like a directional pad and whatever, you can probably do it. Or if you can point with your IR on your, you know.
That's really trippy. Like I saw that and I was like, excuse me? What?
So maybe they will get into bed with some of these remnants. Maybe that's what they're working on. I wouldn't, I guess, Chris, be surprised if they announced something like that. I don't think you need or want the whole team, and they have nothing that you would need in terms of engines, and they don't own any IP, but they have know-how.
Yeah, no. I think it's a smart idea. I think it's cool. It's definitely an interesting landscape we're finding ourselves in.
Definitely. Fascinating. Number 8. Sony has apparently identified that PSVR players want longer and deeper experiences when they put on the headset, and so those sorts of experiences will be coming in larger numbers. Word comes by way of Upload VR, which translated in an interview with Shuhei Yoshida from the Japanese PlayStation blog. Shuhei told the blog, quote, "Users will not want a short experience. They will want to have a game to play for a longer time. Based on such expectations, I came up with the strategy of making full-scale games of larger scale in the second and third years. Titles with deeper gaming will continue to increase in the future," end quote. Is this what you want out of PSVR? Because I feel like there's something to this. Like, I don't even have mine set up because it's so inelegant, but also there's nothing that compelling that makes me want to put it on night after night after night.
Yeah.
Maybe these longer 10, 20 hour experiences could be cool.
Well, nobody wants to set up a VR and deal with all the cables and deal with all the nightmare of setting that thing up only to play a game for 15 minutes. If anything, you'd want small games that you can play for a long time. That's why I think Beat Saber is like really solid. I don't know if that's out for PSVR yet. I know it's coming. It's just such a tedious thing to set up for such a small period of time, especially when you're just dealing with like indie games like, hey, walk through this hallway. Whoa, isn't this a cool graphic? And then you're done. I think there is a huge need for, a reason to stay longer in VR. That's kind of the whole point, is that you're in VR.
Right. You're in virtual reality.
Yeah.
And this gives me heart that they're going to really stick with PSVR, maybe into the PS5 era. We were talking about this a few weeks ago about the wisdom of them continuing to invest in this product.
Apparently it's selling super well.
Yeah. Attach rate is not great considering how many PS4s are in the wild, but people are buying them, and it seems like they're putting money out there to make this a thing. I think this is a smart investment for them to continue down, especially because their competitors are simply not in the space at all, and so they have a massive head start. Number 9. Fallout 76 beta has been announced, dated, and detailed. While the game comes out on November 14th, its beta will begin on PlayStation 4 on October 30th and will come to Xbox One a week before that. The beta is only available to those that pre-ordered the game, and the beta itself will only run during specific times and dates, according to Bethesda, so that it can test certain features and make appropriate fixes. The company aims to have Fallout 76 beta live for anywhere from 4 to 8 hours a day. Are you going to play that at all?
Probably not the beta, especially if it's like a pre-order thing. But I'm excited for Fallout 76. I think it's going to be fun.
Yeah, we'll get some copies in, I assume, late October.
Yeah, I don't like pre-order beta things.
You're basically just selling someone a demo. That's what it is.
That's true.
You're paying for a demo.
That's
like, that's fine and all that, but like, it's not for me.
I do like the games that allow early access for pre-ordering. Like you get week early or 3-day early access.
Yeah, I think that's a cool idea. Yeah.
That's fine. I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
Especially if you're not really losing anything. Especially if it's like you're basically pre-ordering the game, paying a base rate for it, and just getting early access, and then everyone else just pays the base rate for it and plays it on day and date. Like, what's really the difference at that point?
Yeah.
Number 10, speaking of Fallout 76, even though Sony has seemingly lifted its blanket ban on cross-console play with Fortnite, Fallout 76 won't have the feature, which is strange, since Bethesda has been one of the loudest and most vocal advocates for that feature being included in their games. Bethesda's Pete Hines tweeted out that, quote, I work with a lot of devs and games for whom this is an important thing going forward. Fallout 76 does not support crossplay for a number of reasons. I have no idea if it ever will, but I assure you it is not on our radar right now as we focus on the beta and launch, end quote. It's a little strange, right?
Yeah, but it kind of bugged the hell out of me when I saw this, because it kind of showed, it feels like you're not putting your money where your mouth is. You know what I mean? Hey, we want this to happen, and then it happens, like, oh, well, never mind, we weren't going to do that anyway.
Well, it's possible that they were just caught flat-footed and the functionality simply isn't in there. And it's important, Chris, to note, for fairness, that when he was talking about it, he was talking in terms of Legends, which is the Elder Scrolls card game. That's what they really wanted.
That's true.
So maybe there's something to be said there, but I thought it would be an interesting kind of coup for them to be like, hey, this is awesome. We can actually maybe do this, and we have a little bit of time to, put this functionality in there. I do wonder if the way PC and Microsoft or Xbox versions of Fallout 76 play with mods in a way that PS4 doesn't, that is what makes it impossible. Until, like, Sony, I think, wouldn't let mods on PS4 originally for Fallout 4. And so I wonder if there's some
But they're on there now, aren't they?
Right, they are. But I wonder if that has something to do with it. Like, someone makes something gratuitous in Microsoft's, version of the game, and then they export it to the PlayStation version, and now Sony's on the hook for this phallus or something like that. I wonder.
Right.
I know it's silly, but I wonder if that's the kind of thing that they're worried about.
They're probably not going to be mods on Fallout 76 because it almost needs to be untouched by, modders and hackers to even function.
John Tambanillo wrote into us. He asked us about what we felt about this. I just wanted to acknowledge that I answered your question already, but it was in our planning document, John. I just fucked you over. I'm sorry about that. Number 11, Hitman 2 has officially gone gold. This is a game that my girlfriend Erin is especially excited about. She loves Hitman. Word comes by way of developer IO Interactive's Twitter account, which made the announcement on September 27th. With Hitman 2 not launching until November 13th, Hitman 2 has gone gold considerably ahead of release, which is somewhat unusual, but it could very well be a good sign, with the developer not feeling the need to crunch until the last moment. An awesome major difference between Hitman 2 and 2016's Hitman is that it won't be released episodically. You'll get the entire core game on disc or via a single digital packet. This game looks cool. I gotta say, dude, I like Hitman. I'm not like a huge fan. I don't know if I'll play this one. That trailer they released of the hit at the racetrack, did you see that? Is fucking awesome.
The Hitman's great. And I also just like really miss stealth games because I was a big Splinter Cell guy. And even like Metal Gear 2. Metal Gear is more like kind of like an anime stealth game at this point. But I miss stealth games, and I'm happy that Hitman 2 is looking like it's probably going to be pretty good.
I'm glad that IO Interactive was able to retain the IP. Remember, for people that don't know, Square Enix had a relationship with IO and a relationship with the Hitman franchise. They let them go. They allowed them to take the IP, which I thought was very classy. And they are thriving, and they made a new one. Like, I was a little confused by that relationship because it seemed like Hitman actually was pretty profitable for them. I think the episodic release probably injured them a little bit.
Maybe, yeah.
But I've always been really enamored with IO Interactive's eye for detail and eye for design. Like, designing a game where you have to kill this one person in all these different ways, and there's just all of this AI movement. That's why I was so enamored with the racetrack trailer. And I watched it over and over again. I'm like, this is cool as hell. Like, there's a race, an active race going on. So it's like, how are you going to do it? Like, you can go to the pit crew, you can go into the stands, you can go onto the track itself. It's very cool. I love it. I think it's so
Hitman's great. I'm really happy about it. Looking forward to it.
Number 12. Do you want to see more mainline Dragon Quest games in the West? Why, yes, I do, Chris.
Oh, you don't say.
Then you better go buy Dragon Quest XI. In a brief conversation with IGN, Dragon Quest XI producer Hakuto Okamoto told the site, quote, "We need Dragon Quest to sell in the West even just a certain amount if we want to keep making localized versions," end quote. Dragon Quest XI has been receiving mostly positive reviews and has a good buzz in the JRPG community. Meanwhile, other Dragon Quest games outside of the mainline franchise, including Dragon Quest Heroes and its sequel, and Dragon Quest Builders and its sequel, have been released or will be released soon, indicating that there's still decent buzz and support in the West for the old school series. I don't know that this story is even really a story, because when I saw that, I'm like, well, Dragon Quest XI must be doing good numbers. It must be much more complicated to translate and to localize. Mm-hmm. But Dragon Quest Heroes got a sequel, which is a Musou-style, Dynasty Warriors game. And Dragon Quest Builders, which is a Minecraft game, got a sequel that's coming to the West. So I'm like, I don't really know that Dragon Quest is selling softly here to begin with. But nonetheless.
I don't know anything about Dragon Quest.
It's because you're a fucking loser. Number 13, Push Square reports that Warhawk, Twisted Metal, and PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale are having their respective multiplayer functionalities permanently disabled on October 25th. All three games are PS3 exclusives, with All-Stars also seeing a release on Vita. Warhawk launched more than a decade ago in 2007, while Twisted Metal and All Stars both came out in 2012. Push Square also notes that Drawn to Death, the PS4 exclusive multiplayer shooter, is also going offline, but a bit further in advance of now. The plug will be pulled on Drawn to Death on March 25th of 2019. I'm not surprised by any of this. What I was surprised is that Warhawk's servers were still on.
That was shocking to me.
I loved that game like in bursts when I used to play it in like 2007, 2008 with friends, but I couldn't believe that people are still playing it, obviously.
That's cool. That's nice. I mean, if people are still playing it, though, that you think they would shut the servers now? You think they're shutting them down because nobody's playing it and it's kind of like a waste of...
Yeah, probably. Well, yeah. I assume that they have a threshold, and when the numbers get under that threshold for X amount of time, then they're like, all right, time to shut it off. Like, you can go online and probably find people playing all sorts of random shit. But
yeah, I wonder if this is going to be a situation, specifically with Warhawk, because that feels more multiplayer-centric than the others, that I wonder whether or not you'll see a similar thing that happened with Halo 2 in 2011, where they shut it down on April 1st or something, but there were people still playing it until like the middle of the month to try and keep it alive.
Because they kept it alive.
Yeah,
right?
they kept trying to keep going, and they actually eventually just like forced them out on some hard date. But I'm curious as to how many dedicated Warhawk people are out there
PlayStation
who will
All-Stars.
keep the game alive for like another month, just like leaving their PlayStations on.
I think Warhawk got a trophy patch back in the day, so your time to get those trophies is limited now.
Yeah.
It reminded me of when White Knight Chronicles, which was a level 5 PS3 exclusive that wasn't very good, a kind of a shitty RPG, went offline, and like you couldn't get any of the trophies anymore, and it fucking infuriated people. Just know that it's going to be a situation like that, like All Stars has online trophies and stuff. So if you care about that, now's the time to strike. This next one's a little bit weird. Number 14. In a tweet, Dylan Cuthbert, founder of Q Games, the studio behind the PlayStation-centric Pixel Junk series, and the creator of the PS4 exclusive game The Tomorrow Children, revealed a peculiar piece of news. Pixel Junk Side-Scroller, which came to PS3 way back in 2011, is being pulled from the PlayStation Store, likely forever, because of expiring agreements concerning the game's soundtrack. Unbeknownst to Cuthbert, the licenses weren't secured in perpetuity, and he notes that it's unlikely the issue will be resolved. Quote, once it's gone, it will be gone forever, end quote, he notes, as the game is digital only. So I don't know if it's been pulled yet. It might have been. I have it in my download list, and apparently in follow-up tweets, he said that if you downloaded it and purchased it, then you'll be fine. But that game is unavailable now. Wow. And that's sad, and it kind of shows the limitations of digital software and the downside of it. But someone at Sony fucked up. Why wouldn't you get the license in perpetuity for the music? It's not even like really, like, it's good music, but it's not like popular music.
Yeah, that is weird.
I don't get it. Number 15 is a wrap-up, Chris.
Okay.
Gamatsu reports that action platformer Jack Quest Tale of the Sword is coming to PS4 this fall, and that back in 1995, which is a survival horror game built in a 90s aesthetic, is coming to both PS4 and Vita at an unknown time in the future. Patch 1.28 for Gran Turismo Sport brings a ton of new free cars and a new track for you to check out. A new platformer called Squishies is coming to PS4 on November 20th. Episodes 4 and 5 of PSVR's The Exorcist Legion VR come to PS4 on October 9th for $6.99 each. The full series can be downloaded at that time for $29.99. And finally, Push Square reports that PS4's and PS Vita's Fate Extella Link has been delayed. I know you've been looking forward to that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And will now come out in early 2019, and I know you're really excited about this one too. Trails of Cold Steel 1 and 2 have been confirmed for Western release on PlayStation 4 in early 2019.
You forgot to mention the obvious news, which is that Grand Theft Auto sold 1 million copies this week again. Jesus. That's not true, by the way. I'm being snide.
It might be true.
I mean, probably at
Who
this
knows?
point. I don't know.
Who knows what's true and what's
They're
not.
rolling in money, the likes of which I can't even fathom.
I don't even know what I would do with that much money. There comes a point where if you fuck you money, the term fuck you money,
yeah,
which is a term I love.
Yeah, it's good.
Where it doesn't matter anymore.
I would love to be in that position. I would buy millions of fake dollars and mix them in with my real money to keep things interesting.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's nice. Would you have a little money pit that you'd swim around in, like Scrooge?
Yeah, exactly.
Very cool. I like that.
Yeah,
now,
good.
Chris, we've come to the new game releases. As everyone knows, we did acknowledge some people's complaints about us doing this. This week is a little lighter. We want your feedback, so patrons, send us your feedback. Don't leave it in the thread for new questions for next week, though. Leave it in the thread for this episode, which will be available to everyone after 3 days, so everyone can get involved in it. Let me know if you want us to keep doing this or not. I think we're going to keep doing it. I think to Chris's point, it does seem unfair and arbitrary for us to just select some games, and then we pick winners and losers.
Yeah. We got to do our due diligence, as they say.
Do you want to lead off?
Sure. Assassin's Creed Odyssey, retail Friday release. Write your own epic odyssey and become a legendary Spartan hero. Forge your destiny in a world on the brink of tearing itself apart. Influence how history unfolds in an ever-changing world shaped by your choices.
Astrobot Rescue Mission comes to PSVR at retail. Astrobot Rescue Missions is a brand new platformer developed exclusively for use with PSVR. Take control of Astro, the captain bot, and go on an epic VR rescue mission to save your fellow bots who are dispersed all over space. Reviews came out for this today, and it's supposed to be pretty good, but I can't vouch for that personally.
There's a bunch of Japanese in this one. Yeah.
Let's see what you can do. I want to see what you can do.
Fist of the North Star, Lost Paradise, PS4 retail. Fist of the North Star, Lost Paradise is an all-new chapter in the Hokuto Shinken saga?
Yeah,
is that accurate?
Probably. Yeah. I don't know
as master of the Hokuto Shinken martial arts style, Kenshiro will demolish enemies from inside out with dozens of brutal and iconic techniques. I saw gameplay from this earlier, actually.
Does it look good?
It looks interesting. It looks very Japanese. So you might actually like it.
Yeah, well, some people use that as an insult, and some people get hard when you say that. Freaky Awesome comes to PS4. It's a Thursday release. Freaky Awesome is a highly dynamic roguelike where you'll gain mutations by contact with the remains of your enemies. Play solo or co-op with your friends. I guess you can't play co-op with your enemies or people you hate, though.
That's kind of fascinating. That's a weird one. Mega Man 11 comes to PS4 retail. The newest entry in this iconic series blends classic, challenging 2D platforming action with a fresh look. The stunning new visual style combines hand-drawn environments with detailed 3D character models. It's interesting that they would highlight the art style.
Yeah, because that's usually the thing that they would want to avoid, it being 2.5D. I got a little, I don't buy my games from GameStop ever.
Yeah.
But I bought one game from GameStop, and I got this thing in the mail today, and it was like, oh, you've been charged and your game shipping. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? And I forgot that I bought the Switch version of Mega Man 11 like in the spring because it came with an amiibo. So that will be coming in soon, and then maybe I'll just give the game away because I already have it on PS4. The Midnight Sanctuary comes to PS4. It's a Thursday release, Chris, and it says, a haunting story wrought by mystical visuals and talented voice artists. The Midnight Sanctuary is a full-voice, full-animation occult horror visual novel about the mystery of a so-called saint who descends upon an isolated village. They really are hammering home that it's got voice acting.
Party Crashers comes to PS4, Thursday release. Fast-paced battle racing with retro future aesthetic for 1 to 4 players with over 50 included game modes and almost endless customization. It's an interesting way to put that. Party Crashers is an amazingly fun, out-of-the-box...
You're really fucking this one up.
I'm a psychopath. I feel like I'm breaking down. Party Crashers is amazingly fun out of the box and then lets you create your own fun. Listen, I'm technically disabled.
Yeah, because you're dyslexic.
Yeah, it's tricky.
Maybe I should give you easier things to read.
Nah, it's fun.
Oh, you like it?
It's a challenge.
Okay. Paddlebox comes to Vita and only Vita.
Oh.
Paddlebox is an adventure fighting game inspired by the Punch-Out series. It's a surreal boxing quest with a duck.
Oh. I like it. I like the premise.
It looks pretty cool.
Do you like duck?
The food?
Yeah.
No, not really.
What? Oh, you're crazy.
Why didn't we talk about this? At some point in the past that you like duck, I don't like duck.
Duck's amazing.
I feel like it's a little fishy because that's what they eat.
I would eat a duck raw.
Oh.
Racket Fury Table Tennis VR comes to PSVR. Step into the most realistic and intense table tennis experience. Feel the difference with extremely accurate physics developed in cooperation with the professional TT players?
Table tennis players, I guess?
Yeah, I guess so, yeah. It's a popular abbreviation, TT. Everybody knows that stands for table tennis.
I pre-ordered this one for you. Valtherian Arc Hero School Story comes to PS4 retail. Have you ever wondered where all the powerful knights and wizards come from? No one is born a hero. It is your job as principal of Valtheria Academy to train the most promising students to become the heroes of legend.
Okay.
I'll be interested to hear what you think of that.
I'll definitely get on it.
WWE 2K19 comes to PS4 and retail. It's a Friday release. WWE 2K19 is the latest entry to the flagship WWE video game franchise, showcasing a massive roster of popular WWE stars, legends, and Hall of Famers. Experience authentic WWE combat, gameplay, creation, options, and more.
You really are breaking down. You're like a computer that needs to be restarted.
I know.
We need to restart you. That's all the games. I mean, see, that's
are you
a more
WWE
manageable
guy?
No.
Yeah,
Oh, no,
okay.
no. Definitely not.
They're kind of fun, like, nonsense games.
When they lost the camp of the 80s and 90s, like the wrestling where it was like $1 Million Man and like dudes dressed in... It was like G.I. Joe. I mean, it's the same reason why I love G.I. Joe. It's the same reason why I love Mega Man. That's what I said in my Mega Man 11 review on YouTube where I was like, the camp in Mega Man 11 can't be understated, and the association between Mega Man and G.I. Joe in my childhood brain cannot be disassociated from one another because it's like Cobra is just like in these flamboyant, colorful outfits shooting
it's
like
ridiculous.
laser guns. Awesome.
Yeah.
And so when I was a kid, wrestling was very much in that same flamboyance, that same silliness. It's kind of why I like that show Glow on Netflix.
It's a great show.
Yeah, it kind of invokes that. But when it all became like dudes, like normal dudes, like Steve Austin and whoever, I don't know anything about wrestling, but it just seems like it was, no one had masks on anymore. No one was like acting the fool anymore. It was like all very serious. And I'm like, that's
what's good about the games though. Cause like you can make this like disgusting, like broccoli looking monster and you just put him in the ring. It's like, what is this?
I want Doink the Clown to make a comeback. I think he's dead, but I want him to make a comeback.
Yeah, he can make a comeback. CGI.
Now, we have some questions to wrap things up with. I think we have about 10 or so.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see what the listeners have to say to us. Chris, as always, as I said again, if you want to submit your questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas, as we've been reading them throughout the show when it made sense, and then here at the end of the show as we usually do, support us on Patreon at patreon.com/ColinsLastStand, which also gets you early ad-free access to each episode of Sacred Symbols, and also supports my other shows, Fireside Chats, Knockback, and SideQuest. Your support is very much appreciated, and since it's the beginning of the month, it's a great time to get involved on Patreon and extract as much value from it as possible. Daniel the Awesome says, as you were reading the games last week, I was suddenly reminded that BMX XXX was a thing, which reminded me that the guy game was a thing. So which do you think is more embarrassing, owning the guy game because you wanted to see naked women, or owning My Name is Mayo because you wanted 2 easy platinums? The My Name is Mayo thing is by far more embarrassing, but do you remember these games?
I don't.
So in the mid-aughts, there was this brief women objectification movement in video games where it was like very perverse, very
Colin,
raunchy.
That's the entirety of video games.
That's true. That's a good point.
Haven't you heard?
Well, we still get that stuff out of Japan, out of like very questionable content out of Japan, and it's just different mores and a different culture, and I don't judge them for that.
Yeah.
But there was this thing where it was like, big-breasted, kind of scantily clad women in video games. BMX XXX was very pornographic. The guy game was extremely misogynistic. I mean, it goes back in a sense to Leisure Suit Larry and stuff like that, which was like not the nicest game to women either. I just wanted to bring that up because yes, I do remember those games, and it would be absolutely insane and amazing for them to even attempt to try to release one of those games again. Like, whoever owns the IP, I think BMX XXX was, I think, a THQ game actually. I don't think anyone bought the IP, but if someone went to the guy game or something like, we're going to bring the guy game to PS4 and Xbox One, yeah, sure you will.
I would be shocked. But do you remember? There was one game that I played that was like that. It wasn't quite, but there was a Duke Nukem game, Duke Nukem Land of the Babes.
Yeah, I remember.
That's literally what it was called. You like saved like bikini women from rat monsters.
What did the rat monsters want to do with those bikini women?
Probably eat them like rats. The rats eat people, right?
That's my assumption, is that I don't think the rats probably had a sexual motivation. So why were they only after women in bikinis? Wouldn't they have?
Well, they were after you too, but you were too much of a Duke Nukem to succumb to their rat-like charms.
I see.
I actually really liked that game when I was a kid. It's probably garbage.
I think the fundamental question we have to ask ourselves, though, is if games like that are fundamentally wrong to release, and I don't know that they are. I think that you just have to have taste enough to play them or not.
Yeah, you have to. It goes with anything. You have to read the room. If you're a comedian, and you got to read the room, and if you're releasing a game, you got to read the room. You got to see what do people like, what are people not so into.
Go from there, I guess.
Go from there.
Jason Brandt wrote to us and said, Chris and Colin, I am a longtime listener, recent patron, and first-time contributor.
Well, look at that. Welcome.
Here's my question. Is there any old-school arcade game that you would like to see given the red carpet treatment on console in the near future? I ask because my wife and I have been frequenting a retro arcade here in Dallas and are obsessed with Root Beer Tapper. That's a great game. I first played these games on N64 via a Midway collection, and I was wondering if there was room in the market for similar collections or inventive reworks like Pac-Man Championship or Tetris Ultimate. Keep up the good work, and shut up, nerd. We're going to space. I've already declared that.
Tetris is one of the best games ever made, honestly.
Oh, there's no doubt about it.
Tetris is so good.
And Tetris Ultimate is great. The unfortunate thing with Tetris Ultimate is that it just crashes on PS4 constantly.
That's a shame.
But yes, it's funny because I was thinking of Pac-Man Championship Edition. When that came out, I was like, wow, this is really, really awesome.
Yeah.
And they kind of lost the plot with the sequel. But are there any classic games that you would like to see live again, whether it's, we've talked about some of them in the past with like, Space Ace and Dragon's Lair and stuff like that. But are there any arcade games that stick out to you from the late 70s or early to mid 80s that are to your liking?
I feel like for me, a lot of the things that I liked about arcades were the stuff that I couldn't get at home. So like when you would have the tactile gun peripherals.
Like light guns.
Yeah, like Time Crisis.
Yep.
I loved the hell out of Time Crisis. But if they put that on an Xbox or like a PlayStation, I feel like it would lose a lot of... I don't know if there's a real market for on-rail shooters that doesn't have that peripheral.
Right. Yeah.
That was my thing. It's like, Tetris and Pac-Man played just fine on whatever platform you download them on. Competitive Tetris is awesome. there was this Facebook game, Tetris Battle or something. It was awesome. You ever played Dr. Mario?
Yeah, I love Dr. Mario.
My roommate and I have been playing it, and I've never felt so much anger playing a game than Dr. Mario.
Why?
It is genuinely frustrating. Just like when they get like two things in a row and then they drop two random colors to the other side and it messes you up, and it's just like there's something like really inherently competitive about it. I miss those kinds of old arcade style, like really competitive, really simple things that just make you swear at the people you're playing with.
Dr. Mario is endlessly playable. I love that game. You're playing on NES Classic, I assume? Is that where it is?
No, I'm playing. They actually put it out on the Switches. It was one of the games
like a virtual
that was
console?
offered for the retro thing when you pay the $20 for the online.
Oh, cool. Very cool.
It's the only game I'm playing on it, though. It's a seriously competitive game. It's awesome.
It is. It reminds me of more recently of Aaron and I were talking about Overcooked, which is a game I really like. And I wanted to murder Aaron when we were playing Overcooked. And I realized that, like, I'm like, I can't. And she wanted to murder me. And I was like, we can't play this game. It's too much. And then the sequel came out, and I was like, we should play the sequel together. And I'm like, we'll probably not be together after that, though. So maybe we have to be really careful. I would love to see a riff on Arkanoid. I've always been really fascinated by Arkanoid. Arkanoid is kind of a spin-off of Breakout, the brick-breaking games. There was a great PS3 exclusive PSN game called Shattered that came out in 2009 with an amazing soundtrack that was a riff on brick-breaking games, and it had boss battles and all this kind of stuff. I always wish that someone was a little more clever with that, because there's something very satisfying about brick-breaking games. And there's a few of them that are good. Magic Orbs is good. Hyperbaloid is good. But I would like to see something new, something fresh in that regard.
One thing that just popped into my head is Metal Slug.
I feel like they released a lot of the Metal Slug games on PSN.
They did.
So
you can play them.
You can play them. You can play them. I'm not a huge fan.
No?
SNK doesn't
man, I
really
love
do
it
for me.
I love the look of it, too.
Yeah, they're like squat almost. It's an interesting look because it's still in the 4-3 dimension, so they can't explore the space.
Yeah, I like those games.
Yeah, people like those games a lot. Brent Lindquist wrote in and said, "Hey, fellas, I've shamelessly never played Castlevania Symphony of the Night, but it looks like that will change on October 26th with the newly announced Castlevania Requiem. Just curious as to your thoughts on the compilation. Is it weird to release it on the same day as Red Dead Redemption 2? What do you make of the PlayStation exclusivity, especially considering the appearance of Castlevania characters in the upcoming Smash Bros. Ultimate? Should I play Rondo of Blood first? As always, thanks for all that you do." Dude, I'm so excited about Castlevania Requiem. I can't wait. And I've played Rondo of Blood and Symphony of the Night so many times.
I never played Rondo of Blood.
Rondo of Blood's great. It's hard. It's not like Symphony of the Night. It's more of a traditional Castlevania game.
Mm-hmm.
To his question, I think that you should probably play Rondo of Blood first because it is the prequel to Symphony of the Night, or Symphony of the Night is the sequel to Rondo of Blood. And as a lot of people know, one of the great iconic things about Symphony of the Night is that it starts at the end of Rondo of Blood. Quite literally, you are fighting the last boss in the beginning of Symphony of the Night from Rondo of Blood, which is awesome. I've always loved that. Blake East wrote in also about Castlevania. He said, "Hey, Chris and Colin, as always, thanks for making Tuesdays great again. You're very welcome. Castlevania Requiem was officially announced recently to come out the same day Season 2 of the animated series comes out. As happy as I am about another Symphony of the Night port, I'm much happier about Rondo of Blood getting much love. Do you think this could be the start for redemption for Konami? Do you think we could see a Classicvania collection, maybe even a Metroidvania collection? Could a new game possibly be in the works? What would you guys want to see?"
Okay, look, them putting out new Castlevania games is not a redemption arc. There's a lot of things that they would have to do to make up for the ridiculous nonsense that they pulled with Kojima. That said, it's cool to see Castlevania getting a lot of love again, especially Symphony of the Night.
It is. It makes sense. I think that actually to the earlier question we got, why is it being released that day? Well, dude, Halloween's that week. So I think that's the reason why they're doing that.
That's true.
I don't think Red Dead Redemption 2 release at all affects Castlevania because I don't think anyone's going to give a fuck about
There's probably
Castlevania.
not that much overlap.
Right.
Yeah.
People that want Castlevania are going to find it. I don't think it's going to light the world on fire. I'm excited that it's coming out imminently. It's certainly trying to take advantage rather of that October horror, fall, turning of the leaves kind of situation that Castlevania just fits in. And yeah, it could be a sign, not of a new Konami for sure. I agree with Chris there. But it could be a sign that we might get more Castlevania collections if this does well. And that's why I really do encourage, I'll tell you guys if it's good or not, and then you can go buy it if it's actually well done. Because this sends them a signal. They have all of these games under lock and key that absolutely positively need to be re-released. And to the point that was made earlier too about, it's being released on PS4 exclusively. Well, Symphony of the Night was not a PlayStation exclusive. It was also on Saturn, but it's most at home on PS1. Rondo of Blood was a TurboGrafx 16 game, so that has no provenance with anyone's consoles. And I think they're doing that just as a path of least resistance. And it also allows them to spread the message a little bit. They're already got, Castlevania working with the Nintendo audience with Richter and Simon being in Smash Brothers. So now we touch the PS4 audience. Maybe they'll do something also for the Xbox audience or the PC audience in the future. But I do think that if this does well, that they'd be impossible to ignore the fact that they might release more collections. And that would be awesome.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But just keep in mind, just keep the word redemption used as proper. Let's remember that you had to pay for save slots in Metal Gear Solid Survive. They were charging players to make new characters. This is a real thing. It's a real actual thing for real.
Still here on my desk.
It's still unopened on your desk underneath of what is that? Just a bunch of nonsense.
This is ActRaiser on Super Famicom. This is like a little black moleskin book that I write notes in.
It's just under all this.
This is a Persona 4 official design works book.
Also unopened.
My lease.
You had to dig. You had to dig through like a treasure trove of like random nonsense to even find that game that you had. How long have you had that?
Well, I think we talked about it in one of the first episodes, right, of the show, because the
Lord.
price was right. It was literally $9, and I'm like, fine, fuck it, and then it'll just sit there forever. What do I care?
Yeah,
I have nothing to lose. Nick C wrote into us, Chris, and said, "Hey, Colin and Chris, I know how Colin feels about platinum trophies. I was wondering how Colin feels about the total 100% for games, or does he just care about the platinum? This is an OCD thing that I wanted to speak to real quick. Mm-hmm. Trophies work in such a way, and I think achievements work a similar way, but trophies work where if the platinum... All right, let me back up. Back in the day, platinum trophies contributed to the 100% you would achieve on your trophy list. So you would get to like 75%, and then the next trophy you would get would bring you to 76, and then automatically to 100% because you would get the platinum. And then they removed that, so the platinum trophy doesn't count towards that. But then DLC started coming out and counting towards the cumulative number of trophies for a game. So you can have a platinum trophy in a game, like a game with a lot of DLC, like Destiny is a great example.
Yeah.
And literally have 25% of the trophies, the platinum trophy. And does that bother me? And the answer is, of course it does, because I'm way too OCD.
Yeah,
of course
that sounds like super frustrating.
Oh, of course that bothers me. Yeah. Are you kidding me? Come on, guys.
Yeah, you really should know this.
You've been listening to me long enough.
The writing's on the walls with that.
The writing is literally on the walls. You just got to use a blacklight. Steven wrote into us and said the close of Capcom Vancouver and especially Telltale took many gamers by surprise. That being said, apparently the writing was on the wall there for Telltale. Whoa! Because they apparently had layoffs about a year ago. I'm not asking you to speculate, but are there any major AAA developers that you feel, based on what you know about the industry and their histories, are in danger of closing their doors? Thanks for making Tuesday great again.
Not any that I'm aware of, personally.
I think unless you are a behemoth of a studio, unless you are a Naughty Dog, unless you are a Bungie, unless you are in the first party in some insulated way, maybe 343.
Mm-hmm. There's always that risk.
Every game can be your last game.
Yeah.
And the other thing that you have to remember is that the revolution could also be on the other side for any studio too. Studios were in great danger of closing down and have these revolutionary moments like
Santa Monica, right?
Yeah, Santa Monica is a great example. Canceled game, lots of money down the drain, and then they pioneered a new God of War game, and they were able to do it. I think another great example is Don't Nod, which were the guys that made Remember Me, which was a PS3 exclusive that was walked away from by Sony because it was so bad, and then Capcom published it, and then they put out Life is Strange, and now they're huge. The knife is very sharp. It cuts both ways, Chris. Franco Rogue, I don't believe that's your real name, wrote in and said, "What's up, Colin and Chris? Greetings from Brazil." Brazil. I had to say it like that. You know, Street Fighter. Regarding Telltale Games' recent downfall, I want to remember that THQ in its final years gathered immense debt from other companies' IPs. Could that have been a factor in Telltale shutting down? It's an interesting idea because what they're basically saying is that THQ accumulated debt from things they didn't own but that they made.
Yeah.
So like Warhammer, for instance, or Pictionary. And yeah, that's possible.
Yeah,
that's possible. It's impossible to know without seeing the books.
That's the thing. It's very speculative at this point. I think that's definitely a possibility. A lot of it does come down to just like really, really poor, like impressively poor money management, possibly poorly negotiated contracts. There's a lot that could be wrong. There's a lot that could have happened, but we're not privy to that knowledge.
Yeah, we'll have to see more. My assumption is that the few journalists left in games are working on this story, and we'll have probably some really great things to talk about in the weeks and months to come. And we'll get a little bit of a better view into their finances, because this seems to be a leadership position, or people at the top, or the board, management, definitely fucked everything up there. But also, as I said at the top, their games were not selling well. There was a big illusion with Telltale where it seemed like they were going after more and more money, more and more people dumping money in, whether it was Lionsgate, whether it was, these movie companies, and it just didn't pan out.
Yeah.
Oliver Johnson wrote into us and said, "Hey, Colin and Chris, with the PS5's release likely only being a few years away, not even a few years, my friend, I can't help but be concerned about the possibility of backwards compatibility. With Xbox now having 3 generations of games on one system, it is easy to see its significance. It would be a big move for Sony to announce the system with the ability to play all 5 generations of PlayStation games in one place, like any PC. With the recent news of PS3 games not available for download with PS Now and the coming release of the PS1 Mini, will a fully backwards compatible PlayStation be an impossibility? Or is it because with PlayStation 4, the best we can hope for? Love the show. Or is backwards compatibility, rather, with PS4 the best we can hope for? Love the show. Thank you guys for your hard work.
It's difficult to say. I feel like it seems to me, I get the sense that PS3 is nearly doomed. I don't think that you're going to be able to play PS3 games on the next PlayStation. Based on what I know now, which is that people on PC have been trying to emulate PS3 games, and they just haven't been able to do it in a way that's even remotely close to acceptable. And that's on like the most powerful hardware that you can have. Granted, they have proprietary software. They know the ins and outs of those engines a lot better than modders do. I think just the way that PS3 was built kind of makes it a weird kind of black sheep. I think PS2 is possible, obviously. I think maybe PS1 is possible, but you'd probably have to rebuy those games digitally, like you did on the PS3 when they announced, those PS1 classics. It's an interesting problem.
The big challenge for them, Chris, has got to be unifying all of these disparate elements. They have to do it. I'm going to take a little bit of a different tact than you in the sense that I think they have to do this. Like, I don't know how they're going to do it, but they have to figure it out. And yeah, you're saying that these homebrewers and these hackers can't emulate PS3, but certainly with the endemic knowledge at Sony, they'll be able to make an emulator on PS5 that plays PS3 games. Why can't they do that?
You'd think that, but then why wouldn't we have it by now?
I don't know. Maybe because it's probably hard, but is it hard enough to then just punt it to the next console to make that a selling point, to say like, we're going to have a totally unified PlayStation network going all the way back to the PS3's earliest years, and really actually the PSP's earliest years, which I doubt will ever be playable on a console. But for them to go in and say like, we got to figure out how to change your names. We got to figure out how to get these games onto the new console. And if you bought a PS1 Classic in 2008, it's got to be playable on the new console. I think that would be a huge win for them. Even if they're not trophy enabled, even if something weird happens where it's like you can play your PS3 games but the trophies just don't work or something like that, some concession, I think that's necessary. And I'd be really disappointed if they didn't figure that out. There's no doubt that PS5 will play PS4 games.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But
it would be insane, like certifiable, that they would release a new console now without having their existing library of incredibly successful titles playable on it. That'd be insane. But I think PS3 is just such a weird animal. I would love to be wrong, but I feel like I'm probably not. I have a really strong feeling that the best we're going to get is 4, 2, and possibly 1 re-downloaded.
That would be cool. It would be weird in perpetuity, like 10, 15, 20 years from now, where it's like PS3 is still this thing that's just lost because of the cell processor and all the problems they have with PSN and the names and the trophies and everything all started on that fucking console. And I love the PS3, but it's really kind of a nail in their tire basically as they move forward. Like
it's almost like an anchor, like weighing them down. It's all these problems.
It's too bad, especially when Microsoft basically said Xbox One was incapable of playing Xbox 360 games and then just figured it out. Because I believed them when they said that, and they just figured it out.
Yeah.
And so I know that the architecture with Xbox 360 was much more simplistic than cell processing, but I don't know, man. I feel like this is a thing they got to figure out. And we'll figure it out. When they announce that PS5 or when they indicate that they're going to announce PS5, we'll do an episode and make our bets and predictions.
Yeah.
And it'll be a fucking high-stakes game. You better believe it.
Yeah. Hopefully they can, at the very least, right, get the main ones. Get, like, the old Uncharted's. You know, get the big players from the PS3 library. At the very least, they should be able to do that.
And by the way, Chris, we're getting a lot of questions. I always apologize because I can't get through all your questions. We're getting a lot of PS5 speculative questions from the audience.
Mm-hmm.
And what would we want in PS5 and all that. I'm ignoring most of those. I'm not there yet. I can't. We can do it once in a while if there's a story. I'm telling you guys, we're a few months away from things starting to break. We're a few months away from confirmed details of games, of spec, of all of these kinds of things. No doubt about it.
We've already seen games.
Yeah.
I'm pretty confident.
Yeah, I think so too. These things, you can't keep these things under wraps forever. So when we get to those things, then we'll start gearing into PS5. But I feel like a lot of it is just so speculative right now, and we can only say so many things. Like, this is what I think, and I have no fucking idea, and I'm not going to betray what I do know. So
yeah,
it's kind of a catch-22. So I just wanted to let you guys know, if you're writing in about that, let's write about contemporary or older things. Let's not get too speculative about PS5 yet. At least that I don't want to. Maybe I'm wrong. You guys can tell me I'm wrong. This is your show. We do this for you. Phil Budding has the final question for us, Chris.
Okay.
Says, Colin and Chris, what's your opinion on the modern day portion of Assassin's Creed? Does the modern day story interest you at all, or would you rather just be a part of the historical settings of each game? It seems Ubisoft has just brushed it to the side for the most part, having the Juno arc resolved terribly in the comics. Love the show. It's definitely one of the things I look forward to most during the week. Thank you so much for that. I haven't played Assassin's Creed recently, and I don't think you have either, but I was always a little confounded by the jump to modern day and why I care, and it seems like Ubisoft has realized that that's not relevant.
Yeah, that hasn't been relevant to the franchise probably since 3, right? Probably since Desmond's whole thing was
He's
shut
the
down.
Indian one, right? Desmond? No.
He was the original guy from the first one.
Oh, okay. AC3 had the Connor is what I'm thinking of.
Connor was, but it was still
Indian-American.
Desmond in that game, I think.
Okay.
I think, right?
Oh, Desmond in the real world.
In the real world.
And he's playing as his ancestor.
I always thought that was a really cool idea, like a really cool aspect of Assassin's Creed was that kind of shift, because it made this historical game a sci-fi game, and I thought that was like really neat and like interesting. But the problem is like every time you would go into the modern day, you're used to this really interesting gameplay from like, playing around in the past that just doesn't translate. They don't even bother. It's like whenever you go to the future in those games, it's just a watered down version of what you're playing in the Animus. So I always thought it was just like, I feel like those modern day portions of Assassin's Creed had a ton of potential. In fact, I remember playing it when I was a kid. I was like, oh, it'd be so cool to do this in Manhattan, like in a modern day New York City, like do the proper Assassin's Creed thing. But they just never actually did that. And I honestly don't think it got a fair shot. I think they just either didn't care about it enough, which is fair enough because you're working with so much more interesting time periods than modern day, especially modern day 2007. Like,
yeah, who gives a shit?
Spider-Man 3 is coming out.
Flip phone.
Like, what's going on? It's always been this kind of just blah thing for me.
It always broke up the narrative to me. I do agree with you that it's interesting to straddle the lines of modern day and use like the memories of your ancestors to go back in time. It's cool, but I just don't know that you need to see it. I think that like that could be the
They
premise.
never utilized it well,
right.
Is the problem. It's a really cool idea, but they just never really, they fleshed out everything but that pretty much.
But I do speak from a profound place of ignorance. I didn't play the first one. I platinumed the second one. I played the third one a little bit, so I'm way behind. And if Ubi gave us a copy, I was actually kind of looking forward to playing Odyssey, and I might still do that in the future. But now I'm all wrapped up, like I said, in Hollow Knight and these other Metroidvanias, so I might have missed the boat for the time being. It does look very good, and it is being very well received out there as well. So if you're interested in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, it might be worth you checking out. We just don't have any information for you here. Chris?
Yes?
That's it for the episode.
Looks like it.
Sacred Symbols is over for this week. It was fun, though, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was a good time. It was a good time. This was a good show. I enjoyed it very much. It's comfortable to rest like that, right? I rest like this, and I'm resting my left arm on the mic stand, and Chris is facing me, and I'm resting his right arm on the mic stand. It's just very comfortable, very casual.
Yeah.
Very debonair, even, in a way.
Debonair?
Yeah, sure.
Good vocabulary word of the day.
Thank you for that. Well, that's it.
Yeah.
Let's get the hell out of here.
All right.
We appreciate all you guys. Thank you for listening to Sacred Symbols. Remember, leave us nice reviews on iTunes and other places. It helps us algorithmically. You guys have been doing that, and it's super cool of you. I super appreciate that. Remember, you can also listen to this show on YouTube. There is no video component of it, and it only goes up when the free feed is out. But remember, it's very important that you support us over at Patreon at patreon.com/ColinsLastStand for early ad-free access to every episode, your ability to submit topics. Remember, we've put up 2 exclusive episodes of Sacred Symbols only for patrons that will not be available publicly. So you can look forward to those as well. We really need your support, and thank you for that. We'll see you next week for more Sacred Symbols.
Absolutely.
Goodbye.
Take care, guys.
Take care.
Damn it.
Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is fan-supported over at patreon.com/ColinsLastStand. The following names are at the producer level or higher on Patreon, and I want to thank you from the very bottom of my heart for your incredible kindness and generosity. Azan Isa Al-Raisi, Ahmad Alaways, Martin Beck, Fred Bentz, Michael Betts, Eric Bishop, David Blodel, Mark Boggio, Spencer Brand, Isaac Brewer, Lennon Brixey, Jeremy Brokos, Matthew Brousseau, Josh Bushing, Austin Bullock, Andrew Burkhart, Dylan Burns, Alex Cabrera, Brian Cacciatolo, Will Caldwell, Jason Camargo, Matthew Canoy, William O'Carroll, Matthew Carter, William Cashel, Brian Chand, Travis Chandler, Sean Chandler, Kenneth Char, David Chestnut, Steve Clifford, Chris Cochran, Simon Conception Jr., Brad Cooley, David Cox, Cutter Crow, Nick Cummings, Daniel Diamore, Daniel Delanikos, Travis Depew, Mitchell Durkash, David Ellis, Albert Escobar, Brian Fink, Joe Finelli, Eric Finkenbeiner, Stefano Fontana, Photios Frangos, Connor Gassian, Alexander Gates, Michael Gates, Salem Ghanem Al Ghanem, Daniel Glassford, Nicholas J. Gorblush, Tyler Goodwin, David S. Graham, Josh Gravelick, Ryan Greenwood, Dominic Rustini, Miranda Grubba, Random Guy Radio, Andres Guzman, Tyler Harris, Asa Haas, Josh Yeager, Clarence Johnson, Paul Joyce, Greg Juliffs, Jeremy Key, John Clote, Kevin Kamaki, Taylor Christian Laudrin, Christian Larson, Jackson Lassequa, Daniel Laws, Joe Law, Dawson, Don Q. Lee, Ashlyn Lee, Anthony Lencioni, Patrick Leslie, Dustin Lewis, Keith Adrian Lewis, Chad Lewis, Mark Liberto, Lou and Ray Loper, Brendan Lyle, Josh M., Ryan T. Mandel, Michael Martello, Joe McPartlin, Albert Miranda, Mad Mock Media, Patrick Malloy, Betty Ann Moriarty, Abe Mukhtar, Brian Nietzsche, Connor Nesbitt, Josh Netzel, Adam Nix, Brian Ott, Jorge Palomino, Reed K. Parker, Todd Paxton, Brendan Peavy, Enrique Perez, Eric A. Peterson, Jason Pettit, Lawrence F. Prokop, Eric R. Pryor, Michael Renner, Peter Reynolds, Shane Rayum, Jonathan Rice, Toby D. Rymanschneider, Austin Riley, Ramon Rodriguez Jr., Petro Rose, A.G. Rowe, Matthew Savoy, John Scholes, Chris Schaefer, Toby Shootman, Gurman Sidhu, Riley Smith, Gerard Stwave, Stephen Summingett, Ahmad Tamar, Ben Thompson, Carl Tolman, Tam Tran, Esteban Valentin, Adam Van Kuren, Oakley Waldron, Justin Wagaman, Dade Michael Edward Wendt, Griffin West, Mike Want, Tyler Woodall, Corey Wyatt, Tony Zuniga, Casual Misfits Gaming, Supershot ST, Richter 86, Beric, Mubarak, Dav 9834, Chris, Wyatt Henry, and Donk 2015.